Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate you tuning us in as we are getting into UFOs, ETs, Mars, alien abduction, everything with two of the best. Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran are here tonight. If you've never heard them before, man, are you in for a real treat. Yeah, and we're going to say hello to them momentarily. But first, we got to say hello to each and every one of you. Let's start off with Race Fan in the gold medal position. Michael Kennedy with a silver. Neural Channels, brand new to the channel. Welcome to the show. You take home the bronze medal tonight. Hi, Renee Cruz, Roy Boy, Eric Markham, Lisa C., Raymond L. Good to have you all here. Sundance Kid, United We Stand, Brown Dwarf, and Human Carl, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We love our veterans around here. D. Cohen, Vash the Impaler, Dutch Hank, Donna, and Paramarv. Nice to have you all here. Susie B., Spacey Tree, and Derek Galloway is here. Derek will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Remember, he will not sign if you make eye contact. He doesn't like that. Kurt M., nice to see you. Emmy Tong, Marlena, Dana Matthews, welcome from Arizona. And welcome to SOR Chat. Hello, Nicole Sakic. Good to see you. I know you're geeking out for Preston and Dolly. Yeah, you are. You already told me on the phone like 5 minutes ago. All right, let's see who else we got here. We have our good friend and follower, Pixie Lara. There she is. Give us a wave, Pixie, if you don't mind. Millennium, Henry X. Welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Sugar Britches. And who else do we have joining us tonight? Noble Patrick is back. Noble Patrick will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Susan Alloway, Robert Lamoth, nice to have you both here. Penman, Dogface Simon, nice to see you. And where are we going here? Guy Calgary, how about my Oilers tonight, buddy? How about my Oilers? 5-2 going into the third. Love it. Peppa H, nice to have you here. Marty Burback, good to see you. And who else do we have? JSCO, good to have you back. Crystal J, nice to see you. Hey, Redneck. And Chris Teen, nice to see you. Always a pleasure. And Susan in Indianapolis over on Facebook, nice to have you here. Christine Lynn, how are you? And Gizmo. Nikki in Seattle, thank you for joining us. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Matthew Gutka, Nancy Thames, Jamie McCarty, McGahee? That's it. Jamie McGoffey, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. And let's see here. Kevin Kennedy, good to see you. And Lord Ludacris, nice to have you here. Vash the Impaler, Stevie Franchise, Trisha, nice to have you back. Human Carl, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on a nightly basis. So thank you so much, Human Carl. We love you around here. Jeff Steve Garvey, he'll hit a home run for you. Skip to Malou, good morning to you over in Danish land. And let's see, where are we here? Chairman Meow, nice to have you here. And Jessica. Let's start the radio side so that way we could get Bill WD-40 into our chat room there. He's going to lube us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show smooth, lubed up. Laura Lobbs, nice to have you back. Stargazer, thanks for coming on in. And let's see, where else are we here? Rugged Source, Noodles. Good to have you both here. McGahee. It is McGahee. Okay, got it. I did have it right the second time. Thank you. Kim and Ari, welcome to SOR chat. Even though your picture looks familiar, you must have another name. Okay, moving on. Love V Love, nice to see you. Monica, we love you. Jeanette Angel, welcome to SOR chat. Good morning from the UK, my fellow Commonwealther. Rono nice to see you this morning. Mike Bothwell, good to have you here. All right, Super Chat is open. Our store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got cool swag. Grandmaster, what's happening? And do me a favor, everybody. Get your horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. A power show of awesomeness tonight when it comes to UFOs and aliens. Preston Dennett, one of the great authors in our field, as well as Dolly Safran, experiencer extraordinaire, are here with us tonight. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp. Following that, Super Duke will be here for the Cryptid Report. It was January of 1973 when Dolly Safran gazed out her window in the Florida Everglades. Without warning, a UFO dropped out of the sky and hovered over her backyard. To her shock, Dolly could see a thin, gray-skinned figures with dark black eyes staring back at her. Frightened, she dived under her bed to hide. But guess what, people? That wasn't good enough. No. They came into her bedroom, filled it with blazing blue light. Next thing she knew, morning had arrived. She was on the floor, but she was wearing someone else's pajamas. She had been taken. Joining us as well, this is a great couple, by the way. In case you don't know, Dolly and Preston Dennett are a couple. And Preston began investigating UFOs and the paranormal back in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of eyewitnesses and investigated a variety of paranormal phenomena. This guy has, I swear he puts out about 56 books a year on the subject of UFOs. You can find him on his website, prestondennett.weebly.net, and on Amazon. He is literally, if you talk to anybody in the UFO world, there is very few who would argue that Preston Dennett is one of the greatest researchers of our time in this field. Dolly Safran, Preston Dennett, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. It is always great to have friends like you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
Yep.
Preston, how do you pump out 56 books a year? I can't even finish one.
I don't know. I have a disease. Can't help it. I enjoy doing it. It's fun.
I got to ask you, okay, because I have interviewed both of you at separate times, but never together. And I know the story of how you met because, Preston, you wrote a book about Dolly's story, and it budded into a beautiful romance since then. And I'm so proud of you guys. But working together, now that you guys are living together, you're seeing what each other does, how has this increased the woo factor, or how has this affected the research and the way the stories are now formed, Preston?
Well, in a couple of ways. Certainly, I get to see all the psychic stuff Dolly displays regularly. We get to go out of body and do that kind of stuff. But I also get to use her as a sounding board for people who send photographs or all the stuff that's on the internet. I'm like, hey, Dolly, look at this photograph of an alien. This one's real, right? Maybe? Nope.
Sometimes.
Occasionally she says yes. This one looks good. So yeah, that's really interesting to me. She's become my sort of go-to gal to sort of vet some of the reports that I'm getting that are a little questionable. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And Dolly, to get your opinion on this, because I know that when intuitive people come together and people of interest come together, you feed off that energy. And, you may be, say at 50%, but you add in somebody like Preston, that can take that energy and that communication field so much higher. How has that been a change for you, not only with your own contact, but in your own research as well?
I'm more kinetic around him. Things are popping and snapping. We're seeing more stuff. He wasn't joking when I do things. Like I was turning the TV on and off the other night just by waving my hand. And I was like, look. Hey, look. And it went off again and it came on again. And I was like having a good time. And, just little things like that. I'm super organized and he likes to write a lot. And I'm happy to, quietly just let him do his thing while I do my thing. And every now and then we collaborate on stuff. And it just works out really good. I'm more of a nature person. I'm enjoying myself. I'm stranded here right now and I'm putting it to the max. I go outside and I got chickens. I just put 6 chickens in the coop today and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. You both have a love for the subject of UFOs, extraterrestrials, and the contact that goes above it. And Preston, I think, and it's funny, Nicole Sasquatch and I talk quite a bit, and we get to brag about your amazing work and how we get all giddy because we get to call you a friend and everything. I mean, the way that you have investigated this subject for the better part of almost 30 years now, you have heard some of the greatest stories of contact of all time. When you go to look at a UFO subject or a contact situation, now that Dolly is here and you can bounce things off her, what kind of stories are you now looking for? What stories need to be told?
Oh, this is still in some ways a new subject for humanity. I think it's wide open for research, still lots to discover. I still get surprised all the time. I mean, a couple of my recent books, I had no idea, like UFOs over drive-ins, that was a thing. I found 100 cases of UFOs over drive-ins. I asked Dolly about that. And I'm like, I don't suppose you were ever on board a craft when you went over a drive-in and showed off. And she's like, well, actually, yeah, we did do that once. So that was cool. See, I learn stuff every time I ask Dolly a question. I'm like, about schoolyards. I'm like, I did a book on schoolyards too. That was another one that really surprised me. I knew, of course, about Rua, Zimbabwe and Westall High School and a couple of others. Did not know there was 100 of them. And so I go, Dolly, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? And she pretty much confirmed what I suspected, that it's an introduction, a way of introducing kids to the subject, and then told me about her experience landing at a school. I'm like, I just knew it. It's crazy.
You two are the power couple of woo.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Power couple of woo.
I'll tell you, it's cool for me too. He just got into a new database and we're having a blast plowing through it. He's plowing and I'm listening. Okay. He's got recordings and all kinds of stuff. And it's like he dove in with both, and it's been fun. So yeah.
Yeah. I found all the news clippings you could ever want, going all the way back to the 40s to the present.
Well, that's incredible. Working together on this subject, how has the personal contact changed for you guys?
Well, I'm totally in contact with my Talata all the time and Mama frequently, not all the time like Talata. he interrupts conversations I'm having with them, or we'll be listening to something, and Todd will pop in with information and talk about it, and I'll repeat it to him. So that's the type of contact I'm having right now, since he's not here with me at all. And I also have been OBE more lately, and so we're upping that game because there's more to learn over, that way too. And I've been remote viewing a lot lately, so yeah, and working on getting him to do it. Yeah.
Dolly's a medium, so she apparently attracts ghosts, which I found out when I go out of body. I'm like, hey, there's people in our house. What is going on? And I always ask them their name. One guy says, my name is, what was it? Thoreau Dean.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, you're dead, Another guy says, I'm like, who are you? And he says, my name is Sam. Dolly knew who that was.
I know who Sam is. Yeah.
So,
I got a couple that follow me around through life. They don't leave me. I can't convince them to go. They just show up. So,
what's really weird is on our YouTube studio here. If you look on our YouTube side where we're live on camera, my lights are flashing.
I see it.
And I'm going to tell you the weird part about this is there are no lights flashing in my studio right now. The lights are all the same. I've got my little light here.
Yeah.
Okay, which lights up my big mug, and it only gets about half of it. And then I have a bar of 5 lights right above that.
Yeah.
None of them are flashing, and I'm trying to figure out on our YouTube side why all of a sudden we're seeing flashing lights.
Well, it could be a couple reasons. One, I'm really energetic right these days, and I could be flashing at you right now. But we've had a couple of CMEs in the last couple of days that were pretty significant, and it's affecting everything. And your camera can pick up the flash of that energy coming through to you. So that could
maybe
be
that's it.
Yeah,
maybe that's it. Because I'm literally looking at every spectrum of light here, and nothing is flashing, and it's kind of tripping me out a little bit. Because I love it when weird things happen that I can't explain, and I could understand. Look, like the other night, I had a one of my lights. It ended up burning out, but it was doing the final life of how they flash on and off. It was doing that. I got nothing like that right now. Nothing.
Yeah, we really do have a lot of energy. You know how the astronauts will talk about being on the ISS and they'll actually see stuff come through the air right through the ISS, and it freaks them out, and they get it on film and they say, look, and it's ionized protons coming through, and that would be from gamma radiation from the sun. And that's basically what we're having right now, is those ionized protons from a CME that was pretty significant. And there were 2 of them. We have 2 more coming back to back. So you're picking energy. You saw the Aurora Borealis the other day, didn't you?
You know what? It actually rained here for a day and a half.
Wow. Now,
we don't get rain. That's the first rainfall this year. Rainfall this year. And, now that the snow, it's not snow anymore. We actually got rain. And the last couple of nights that the Northern Lights were supposed to be pretty amazing, I've been clouded out. I haven't seen them, but early, about a month ago, I had them hovering right and dancing right over top of my house, which I posted a bunch to social media of the Northern Lights. I mean, we had all the spectrum of colors happening over top, and you know what? To be able to catch that is absolutely amazing. It really is. Like the spectrum of lights that we were getting were, like absolutely phenomenal. And it's just
look, yeah,
it's incredible. Like you look over your house and there's pink and red and orange and blue and green and yellow. It's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. But no, otherwise I've been shut out recently, so I'm not happy about that, because I don't care how long I got to stay up. I will sit there and watch. But I will say this, in the world of 2023, today was the first day that I walked outside without a jacket or hoodie on.
That's
It was
awesome.
it was it was 41 degrees out here this
Well,
morning.
I will. Yeah.
That is t-shirt weather in my territory.
Yes. That's amazing. I know I went out in the t-shirt today. That it was 53 today, and I was running around out there in shirt sleeves getting the chickens out, and it's going down to 43 tonight. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have brought them out this soon, but I fixed them so they're okay. And yeah, this is spring. Yay.
Oh yeah, this weekend where I live, it's supposed to get up to about 75 degrees.
Oh.
So I am not prepared for that, but that's okay. That just means that I get to put my top down on my Jeep and go have some fun in the sun. That's
absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about some UFOs here, because UFOs and experiences is what we are talking tonight with Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran tonight. Preston, is there, in a recent case that really sticks out to you as something that we should pay attention to? And the reason why I ask that is, with everything that's going on governmental wise with UFOs, it's turned this subject so political right now. And I like getting back to basics where we're talking to people like you and Dolly regarding this phenomena and the really good cases that you are following. So is there a really good case that's really come to your attention recently?
Not super recent. No, it's slowed down in terms of people are having extensive contact, which fits in with what Dolly's telling me, that the ETs have largely bugged out. I do interview a lot of people. I'm putting together another book with about 20 new stories. So I'm pretty much involved in wrapping that up. And those cases are wild. I'm amazed at the many different types of ETs people are seeing. All humanoids, but many different types, not just grays, of course. So I'm pretty much wrapped up in that. In terms of new cases, there's one guy I am working with in England who did contact me not too long ago, saying that he did have a recent visitation by a short little AI gray, which would fit in with what Dolly's saying. She says some of those are still here, but for the most part, no. I'm not getting any new recent cases right now.
Yeah, they're flying mostly drones, ET-type drones, and the smaller, the sports models, they can fly those, but it's sporadic. They have to watch out what's happening. SpaceX keeps having problems. Everybody else does too. We're having problems with our computers. Things are going weird, and it's all related to what's over our heads magnetically. And so they have to be careful. They jump in and they jump out real fast. But it's mostly the AI. If you were to CE5, you could probably get an AI drone to come down. And it's just big enough for two of them to fit in it. And they're capable of watching you and signaling you and doing all kinds of stuff. So that's what I would be looking for.
What I do see is a lot of people waking up right now to their contact. So a lot of people are absolutely losing their minds because they've finally come to grips with the fact that they've had these experiences. And there's enough information out there in the public arena that I think this is getting pushed into the mainstream. People are finding the courage to talk more openly about it. So I think we're turning a corner in some ways, that this is becoming something that people can talk about without fear of ridicule and disbelief.
Absolutely. Now, Dolly, you said something interesting about contact, and I've noticed a lot of people recently have claimed that their contact is down. They're not, or their contact has changed from something really peaceful to something very, very darker than they've ever seen before. Yeah. Why do we see this change going on?
Because the world governments, the alt governments, have a false flag that they've now started putting out, and it's happening. And that's why you're going to start seeing more and more and more of that. The rhetoric in the government is going to become national security, and the Space Force is going to become involved, and you're going to see stuff hitting the skies that's them. In other words, us, not ET. And they're going to be punitive and damaging. And this is really going to happen. It's not a joke. It's really going to happen. So.
And Preston, are you following that as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of buzz about that in the UFO community among researchers and experiencers alike, that this is a real issue that we're having to deal with. There's no doubt that our governments have reverse engineered this stuff to a certain extent. I think, and Dolly can talk about this, there's limits to what they can reverse engineer.
Right.
But yeah, I am worried about it. When Dolly told me, and they don't really fly triangular craft, I started arguing with her. I'm like, well, yes, they do. I've got cases. She says, well, they're probably not ET. So I went through my whole files and I couldn't find really any triangular craft. I found one or two, which I think they were probably describing something that's more boomerang shaped or chevron shaped. But yeah, I'm worried about that. The TR-3B things. And
if you know that we have stealth technology, right? And all our stealth aircraft are matte black. And that's because it avoids radar. It's painted with a substance that is radar doesn't work on them. It can't hit them and ping them properly. And the TR-3Bs are perfect examples of this. They're matte black. They have that stealth paint on them. And they have the 3 circles, but they have other things going for them that you all are not aware of. And that is they're armed. They have technology on them that can do some real damage. There's another type, if you see a rectangular craft and it's either matte black or matte silver, that is a crowd controller. It can hover over your head. It can move about 45 miles an hour and track people and crowd you into places you want to go. And they are armed with laser cannons. That's real. There's a couple other types that they have. They have a circular round type of drone that is anti-grav now, and it can watch everything you're doing. It's got good cameras on it, and it's what they call a lead. In other words, it can scope out what's going on around it and report back. It shows what's going on, and then they send the bigger guns in with it. They use that in warfare. It's real. It happens. So
I was talking to someone about the black triangles, and they were in belief that they are of our technology.
Yes, they are.
And the funny part about that was, I said, well, where do they land? Where are they basing these craft? Is it here on Earth? Is it on the moon? And this person told me, what if they don't land?
Well, they have to. They absolutely have to. The fuel they use has to be replenished. They don't use the same fuel as ET. It is radioactive, though. And most of them are unmanned, but they can be manned. It's remotely manned. I remember when I was in the Army, we had battle labs on Fort Benning where the guys were learning to fly drones way back when. And they could sit in a chair for 6, 7, 8 hours flying those drones, and they didn't come down for that amount of time. And when they did, they had to, charge them, do all kinds of things. Some of them were even built to carry munitions. They're capable of quite a great deal of technology that most people here don't even think about. If it's flying, it's got to have a person in it. No, it doesn't. Not at all. They have Raptor R-22 that have intakes that are so small you can't see the engines. And it goes so fast. It's to protect the engine from being slammed by a bird. This machine can hit Mach 2 easily, but it also has the ability to turn on a dime. If you ever seen a Raptor flip over and go the other way, you're looking at real technology with this aircraft. And most people say, oh, no, it couldn't have been that. It had to be ET. Wrong. Yes, they can. And it's amazing what they can do.
And on that note, Preston Dennett, Dolly Safran, we will get you to hold on right there so we can go to break here at the bottom of the hour. When we return, more alien stories, more UFO stories with two of the best in the business, Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear. What is that beeping sound?
It's annoying me. It's like, are you going to bed or not? Hold on a second. Let me fix it. I will stop it. I'm kidding.
Go to bed already. The
Yes.
interview's over.
What are you doing? It knows I'm awake. Hold on a second. It's like, you got to quit moving around now. It's over. Your day is over. Stop.
It's time.
Yep.
Time for Betty Bye.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
You're still blinking, Dave. I'm
I
trying to
know.
get a pattern. If it's 2 for yes, 1 for no.
I don't know. Keep trying, my friend. Keep trying. I don't get it. I don't know if it's my camera at the angle and it's taking different light in at each time, or like each time I move. I don't know if it's controlled by my movement or if I just sit still.
It might be actually. It might be adjusting the light slightly.
Let's see if I move it down a little bit. Let's see if that changes anything. I can see my fatty chest and tummy now. Ugh. Oh, Fish, how you doing? Let's see here. Who else has hopped in here? Am I sunburnt or the lighting? I probably got sunburnt today. Look, I've been in frozen temperatures for the last 6 months. I'm starting to thaw out now. Uh-huh.
That's
Yes.
funny. You have no idea how funny that is to me. It's so funny.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to enjoy this for about 3-4 weeks before mosquito season starts.
Oh gosh, I hate
Then
them.
then those bastards start picketing around my doors saying, "Come on out, Davey. We want some of that O positive."
You would hear a terrible thing. I'm a neg and they don't bite me. I'm not susceptible to them at all.
Oh
I
my
can walk
God.
into a room full of mosquitoes and they go, "Bert." They leave me alone. I'm
Yep.
working. Yeah.
Let's go just about like that. Let's see how that one works. That seems to be better. No. Jerk. All right, right there. Let's try that one.
You're just an electric personality, so nothing.
Oh, you stop. You stop. You're starting to flatter me.
You are. I was so jealous when you went to San Francisco for the UFO con. I was like, we couldn't go. And we were already in California and had to come back, and it's getting expensive to fly now. And I was like, dang, nabbit, I wanted to go.
Thank you, Derek. That my face looks like a tomato. Appreciate that. I eat DAY song. I eat garlic every day. It doesn't matter. I eat garlic every day.
Do you know what citronella is? It's a
Yep.
plant. Plant them all around your house. It helps get them to go away.
Dolly, when your mosquitoes are this big, they don't care.
Okay.
They don't care. They're like, literally, they are carrying picket signs around.
Yeah, they're like that in Miami. Yeah. They
Yeah.
carry little knives. I catch you.
At least they're not a foot big like they were in the prehistoric times.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
Right. Apparently, O positive blood is more attractive to
Sure is.
mosquitoes.
Yep.
It's like a sweet nectar.
Mm-hmm. Very tasty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're like candy. Candy. Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I've known this my whole life. My mom is O positive. My dad was a neg. I came out a neg like him, and my brother came out O positive like her. And he practically wore screens all over his body. You know, the hat with the stuff because he couldn't stand it. You breathe them in. They're so bad in the legs.
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh, I know.
Terrible.
I know.
Yep. Yeah, them little bastards. Oh, I can't stand them. And they're right around the corner. Although the last couple of years, it hasn't been too bad here because our bats are coming back.
Oh, how nice. Yeah.
And so like during the fires of 2017, it wiped out a huge portion of the bat population in the forest fires, but now it's coming back. I quickly here, thank you, Human Carl, Derek, Susie, and Deb, for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciated. Here comes the second half hour, everybody. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Thank you for tuning us in, for your love of the woo. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Power UFO couple, Preston Dennett, Dolly Safran are here. Preston, you can get all his books at prestondennett.weebly.net, or is it .com, Preston? .com or .net?
.com.
.com.
So.
There you go. And his better half, because I'm going to say that. That's just a thing to do. The better half, Dolly Safran, ET experiencer her entire life. Welcome back to the show, guys. We love you here.
Thank you.
Let's get into some ET contact, because right before the break, Dolly, we were talking about how a lot of people who are used to contact are either getting shut down or are, experiencing contact from levels that they've never experienced before. For a lot of people who have never experienced this phenomena, Dolly, what is it like? What does it feel like? How do you know it's happening to you and not just a bad dream?
It leaves you with the five senses being active during the encounter, and you have actual smell memory, you have touch, taste memory, you have feeling memory, more intense than you would in a normal dream. You also know that you're being spoken to psychically. It's not a verbal communication, and it's very direct. Dreaming is very iffy, Annie, or it can be very disorienting in what people are saying to you, or you're trying to communicate. It's not as direct. ET communication is very direct. They make sure that you know that you're hearing them. So that's how.
So when you have contact with a being, do you know what being is reaching out to you, or are you like a Kmart blue light special where when they're flying around up in the stars and they pick up that blue light, anybody can stop by and say hello?
Well, it's that there's no such thing as separation psychically. It's like you can talk to somebody halfway across the universe in real time psychically. And once you're known and the others know you, they can contact you at will, and you them. If you have a really good affinity for them or a really good relationship with them, you build the connection so it gets stronger and stronger. If it's somebody that I don't know, I have the 6 immediate questions. Who are you? What do you want? Where are you? And how can I maybe help you? And I'll wait for the answer after that. Sometimes I deal with what's going on the planet. Negative energy will come at me, or I'll have somebody who's passed and they show up in the house and they want my attention, and that's disconcerting at times for me. I have to explain to them, let's go for a walk, and try to help them find the light. It is not usual for ETs to like everybody come at me, all at one time. Everybody takes a chance turning, say like, if they know that I haven't had any contact for a while, somebody open their, mind up and say, hey, what's going on? And I'll hear them and repeat back to them, I'm fine, I'm good. I am watched somewhat. Talata does watch me constantly. He is aware of me at all times. I'm used to that contact with him. We built that up over the years, and it continues to this day. So.
Mm-hmm. The idea that you have lived with this a long time. It's part of your life. It's part of many experiencers' life. But there's also a lot of people out there who are maybe in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they are being taken. Why does this happen? Is it about opening up people to the phenomena, or is it about opening up people because they have something special that maybe the aliens need?
It's more of they've been real healthy their whole lives and they're known to them, but they haven't really needed to help them because we have so much radiation coming at us because our magnetosphere is down. It's derazzing our DNA, and they have a way to help us build that back up. I mean, you have to notice that in the last 80 years, we have more autoimmune, heart problems, cancers, things like that. And they will suddenly realize this person needs help, and they'll bring them on board, help them with that, check them out, make sure they're okay, and then, send them home. That is their number one responsibility toward us. That's how they feel about it. We are their children, and they're not going to, totally turn their back on us. They expect us to fix our own problems. They expect us to mature and evolve. But you don't let your babies run around sick, and that's what they do. They're helping.
Yeah, cases rarely are a one-off. When someone's taken on board for the first time, I think it's probably happened before, and they just weren't at a place where they could remember it or deal with it. And ETs at one point will usually make sure that a person has at least one fully conscious onboard experience that they can, sink their teeth into. But yeah, it's usually not a one-off. This almost always begins early in childhood, whether you know it or not.
I think people are becoming more conscious, by the way. The more people who are waking up, that's sort of like a pinball. It bing, 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 bing between all of us. We're talking about it freely, and people are paying attention now. Okay. And they're remembering more and seeing more and developing more that way. So.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I mean, does it always start, Preston, at childhood?
For the most part, I'm not going to say always. I mean, I just interviewed a lady, Geneva, who had a really interesting story to tell, where she had a UFO hover over her for literally all night. She was out in the wilderness. She was at a very low point in life and went out to do primal scream therapy and was shouting at the universe because she was depressed. And this is when a UFO showed up. And she says it was really quite scary, but at some point she felt this incredibly loving, peaceful energy coming from it, and that there were beings inside there and they were watching over her. And I did a long interview with her to figure out, was this a one-off? She did have a prior sighting. She, following this, had incredible dreams of being on board. And talking to her, it's pretty clear that these were more than just dreams. But she says, no, I don't remember anything from childhood, really at all. Now, her brother did. So I don't know. I think that it's possible that people don't always have it early in childhood. But she was, let's see, 17 or 18 years old when she had her first sighting. So that's still pretty young. I'm not going to say it's always the case. But if you're being taken on board regularly, I think so. And probably your parents or someone else in your ancestors there is, because this does follow families, particularly with people who are having regular contact.
I want to ask you, and I've never asked this question before to either one of you or anybody on this show. What about senior citizens, or let's say 50s to 90s? Do those people in that age category still get taken? Now, I have heard stories, Preston, about, like say for a man, if you're in the hybridization program and you're a man, you get a vasectomy, or a woman has a hysterectomy where she can no longer where either could no longer procreate. They are kind of taken off the list, so to speak, and their contact may all of a sudden go from down to zero right off the bat. I mean, do you hear of older people being taken for the first time, or they're realizing it for the first time between 50 and up?
Yeah, Yeah, that absolutely does happen. I talked to one guy, Dudley Delaney. He was taken on board, and he was in his late 70s. He had prostate problems. They took him on board and healed him. There's another lady, I didn't interview her personally, but she was in her 70s when she had what she believes was her first contact. She was healed of jaundice. And her family didn't believe her at first, but her jaundice was gone. It was a chronic condition. So it having disappeared, and she had a story to prove it or to back it up. And yeah, I've got plenty of cases of people who are elderly who have been taken on board. Not to say that there aren't a few who were having regular contact and that it did slow down in their 60s or so, but I don't think it ever really ends, honestly.
No.
I don't know if Dolly might have more to say about that, but I've definitely got cases involving old people, for sure.
Yeah. I'm 65, by the way, and and still going. On board, I've seen multiple people, elderly, you would call elderly, over 70. The one dramatic one is we had a physician come up, they brought him up, and I realized that he was a physician who started way back when and pretended he was a boy because he was really female and he wanted to be a doctor. And this person never married, never had any children, and spent their entire lives taking care of anybody and everybody. He was a very good physician, and they honored him or her. And it was beautiful. And I've known my whole life that they respect all different stages of life, and each stage has its merits. And yes, they do protect the elderly as well. So it's important. They have something to do in life. They're important. They respect wisdom, and their system is one based on respecting wisdom. They don't have a council or a federation, but they have a conglomeration or a consensus. And when they have issues, and they're big ones, they go to their wisest people, and they're generally the oldest. And then they bring them information, and everybody talks about it, and then decisions are made. So yeah, the elderly are important to them, very important. They have a lot of knowledge that you don't have,
No, and I fully understand that and can see that, but you never really hear about it. You always hear about the children, or you always hear about, people between the ages of 20 and 55 or 60. You don't really hear about the older cases. And if you do, it's about people telling their stories from the past and not in the present. I want to change the subject a little bit here, guys, because I am very curious to get your opinion on what's going on. Down in Texas recently, there has been a rash of cattle mutilations going on. And I know this is something that a lot of people tend to bring into the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Maybe they like a nice lean cut of beef or a nice steak dinner every now and again. I haven't figured that out yet. Preston, I know you've encountered every subject regarding this. What do you think's going on down in Texas right now?
Well, I heard about the stories. I haven't researched them in depth, but I've certainly looked into the whole subject of cattle mutilations, because writing UFOs over Colorado and New Mexico, both those books, those states are hard hit by the cattle mutilation phenomena. And I was a bit on the fence about what was going on there, because it's clear with all the black helicopters, and there's some government involvement. That's clear to me. I think that's clear to a lot of the mutilation researchers. And Gabe Valdez was one of the big guys, and he said flat out, government is responsible for this. And others have said that as well. I asked Dolly about that, and she's like, yeah, ETs do not do this. I do know that they will take animals on board of all kinds. I've got case after case after case of that, where people have had rabbits taken and pigs, and all manners of animals are being pulled on board. But I don't think it's for nefarious purposes. Honestly, I think that they are protecting. Well, I asked Dolly about this, and she's like, oh yeah, that's one of the things we did, was pulling off animals before they went extinct. They've got huge animal husbandry centers on board, which I knew, because I've collected I wrote about that in my Not From Here books. alien zoos because people are taken on board and they see all manners of animals. That happened to Carl Higdon. He saw 3 or 4 elk that he was hunting pulled on board. So I don't know. My theory, my assessment, I can't prove this, but I think government is honestly behind the mutilations, and it's part of the whole scare propaganda linking it to ETs.
How about you, Dolly?
I agree with them 100%. I also know that they're decimating our cattle population in this country. Speaking of Texas, they just lost 22,000 head of cow, milking cow, because of a ginormous explosion at a dairy processing plant. And the amount of explosion that it was phenomenal. I mean, 22,000 head of cow, that's a lot. And more were also mutilated. I mean, if you look at the entire picture of what's going on in our country, you can see cattle processing, chicken processing, all of those things are being taken down right now. And you got to ask yourself, why are they doing this? And it is an agenda on their part to make us afraid and to fear what's going on. And that's one of the ways they do it.
Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran are here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Yeah, that whole cattle mutilation thing is weird because, I mean, you look at the laser type cuts that are allegedly made on these creatures. I've never seen one. I've only seen photographs of what they're happening. But I mean, you would have to be a Japanese samurai from the 1500s to 1700s in order to create such clean slices in an animal like that.
In medicine, we have laser technology like that. It's used every day in every hospital in this country. We have lasers that are so precise and bloodless that they can do that. You got to wake up to what's really happening. This technology is known here. It is used here. It's easily accessible here. So this is not an out of the box thing. It's in the box. They have this technology and they're using it on animals, period.
The idea behind that, though, is why are the aliens then just a quick excuse for this happening?
Yeah, they want to hurt things. They're ruining everything. I mean, think about what's going on in our lives right now and worldwide. This is a plan. They've had it in place for a while. What we have coming at us, they're well aware of, and they've been planning to survive it. Those that are in the know with this and the 1%ers, and the rest of us are in the way. And so let the annihilation begin.
We don't have historical accounts of mutilations. So that's a modern phenomena, which also makes me question it.
Yeah.
I'm not a mutilation researcher. I find it a bit gory and unpleasant, but I'm certainly watching it. And I've been going through the databases, and I do find all kinds of interesting things that the ETs are doing. There's just one case where they're hovering over a trout farm, apparently taking fish, pulling them on board. They stole a bunch of pineapples out of a pineapple factory. I thought that was really interesting. They do stuff like that, but I don't have any good evidence that they're responsible for the mutilations. I'm not going to completely rule it out. Dolly does. She has a better insight than I do. So I kind of, Dolly having proven her story to me, I have to take what she says seriously.
I'll give you reason A. We do things to our meat here that they wouldn't dare to even think about. We give them hormones. We give them antibiotics. They're getting ready to give all our cattle mRNA vaccines because they say it can transfer to them. So this is not funny anymore. ET won't eat our meat, period. They won't touch it. Bird flu, all kinds of things can affect them. They're not used to being here. They're not used to being us all the time, and they won't eat our food, period. That's reason number one. Reason number two is the way they travel, they can go home at any time and eat their own food, and they bring their own food on board. They don't stay for too long of time here. They get back as quickly as they possibly can. This is not an issue. They have billions of territory that they go to that all of these people are from, and they have plenty of food. They haven't wasted their environments like we have. They haven't toxified their people like we have. They won't touch what we eat or drink, period. So why would they mutilate cattle? What's the point? what does that serve? They know all about us. They know all about our animals. They are billions of years in advance of us. This is ridiculous. It's not a thing for them.
Yeah, that's why I always laugh when people say, "Oh, they're here to take over." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Really? They have been choicing the entire universe and they want Earth poisoned, overpopulated, polluted? Makes no sense."
I want to change topics here a little bit and go into the idea that, aliens we always assume are from space. Yet, if you hear people on the government side of this, Preston, you hear them talking about, well, we don't know if they're from space. We don't know if they're from a different dimension, a different timeline, whether they're time travelers, whether they're from inner Earth. There seems to be a lot of excuses outside of space, and some foreign technology has brought them across the universe to find us and our very loud planet that we live on. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I see this even within the UFO community, a resistance to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And it irks me because I don't understand the resistance. It's a very logical, almost inescapable conclusion that there are other beings out there. We are here on a planet ourselves. We know we're living physical beings. It's perfectly logical that there would be others out there. And that's exactly what people are reporting seeing. And you can call them interdimensional if you want, but every one of us has interdimensional aspects. ETs have evolved to a point where they can do things that look like interdimensional magic even. They've mastered how to travel interdimensionally, do things that with time that we don't fully understand. So you can call them time travelers too. I don't think there's any good evidence that you can put forth to say that they're time travelers from our future. I've looked into that and I've looked at all the cases. I just don't see any really compelling evidence of that. The fact is, if the crash retrieval reports are true, and I think they are, then all bets are off. Our government knows what this is. They're not interdimensional beings. These are biological beings like us, flying craft around from other planets. I don't know why that's so hard for people to just accept as a possibility instead of putting forth these weird anthropocentric theories like this is an intelligence that puts on different masks and is masquerading as Bigfoot and ghosts and near-death experiences and all these different things as one intelligence. I don't see that being the case at all. I think we're dealing with people like us, more like us than different.
How about you, Dolly?
I agree with him. We are interdimensional beings. Just being alive here, when you link up with your psychic abilities, the first thing you can learn to do is OBE, out of body. When you go out of body, you don't just stay on this planet. You can go up into different realms. Those are dimensional realms. We can freely transfer our consciousness between dimensions. It's not hard to do. It's very easy to do, as a matter of fact. We can conceive of other dimensions, and we can conceive of possible life in them as well. There's life in the third dimension, the second dimension. The first dimension is just so flat, too much gravity. No. Fourth dimension, yes, there are beings in the fourth dimension. In the fifth dimension, they start to lose their corporeal constructs. In other words, they're more non-corporeal. They're just mind. And then on up. One of the things that I was taught about them is that we have to evolve and we have to learn to see what's really going on with us. And that is that we're all made of light, all protons, all electrons, all of it is light. We're gravity heavy here and it's densely packed together. And so we don't see that we're light, but we are. And all light travels interdimensionally, everything. There are 12 dimensions in this universe alone. Yes, we're interdimensional beings, but they are not going, they don't come from there to here, except for who flies their stuff.
On that note, we're through hour number 1 with Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran tonight. We're going to take your questions in hour number 2. Anything to do with aliens, UFOs? Why are they here? Where are they coming from? How come they don't come to Dave's house anymore? Hour 2 of Space Out Radio is next. There we go. I'm just going to take a quick break here and go see if the Northern Lights her out. I'm going to put both of you back in the green room here. We'll meet back here in about 3 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back, everybody. Let's quickly say hello to Super Duke. Thomas Rock, how you doing? Anastasia, welcome back. Happy birthday, Anastasia. I'll sing happy birthday to you when I get back. Why the hell do I look so red? Oh, it's that stupid light thing. I'll be back. All right, I am back. And to Anastasia, who just turned 39 years old, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Anastasia. Happy birthday to you. There you go. Happy birthday. All right, let's bring in Preston and Dolly here.
Not
Nice
bad, Dave. You're
rendition.
a singer. That's your second job, huh?
That's just the old I do that for our audience members. Redcap Goblin, welcome to SOR Chat. Blue Cruz, how are you? And who else has jumped in here late? Surf Chair, hey, it's been a while. Good to have you back, buddy. Another great veteran who listens to this show. We love you, Surf Chair. Hope you're doing well. And let's see here. Who else do we have that's come on in? We're scrolling. We're running out of time. We got 30 seconds to figure this out. And there we go. Rhonda Montpetit, welcome back. And thank you to our super chatters, Human Carl, Derek, Susie, Deb, Jeff, and Jerry. We very much appreciate the love. You can do your shopping at spacedoutradio.com on our store. And we're going to kick off hour number 2 of the show right now. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vapography. Vapography is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go once again with Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. Preston's website, if you want to check out a plethora of his books, is PrestonDennett.weebly.com. Make sure you do check it out. These are books you need to add to your UFO library. Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
All right, well, let's get to some ET stuff here, because for many people out there, you know, just the thought of grays scares them. But there are so many different species that people have allegedly come in contact with, Dolly, that we can't even seem to account for, whether it's Andromedans, Arcturians, Anunnaki, the Pleiadians, the humanoids, the Nordics, the grays, and everything in between, from creatures that look like ants to mantid beings to cats and dogs and everything. How do we keep track of this so that way we can figure out, is this really happening? Are we being visited by all of these different species, or are there just a bunch of people playing this up?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Preston, you go first.
Yes, we are being visited by all these different species, and they're not that different from us. If you were to have people coming from all over the planet visiting you, probably feel the same way. I mean, we look that different. The more I talk to people, initially I thought, gosh, I'm getting mostly grays. And that's still true. I'm going to say it's over 50%. I interviewed a guy from Alabama not too long ago. His story is going to be in my next book. He saw little blue beings. And they would come to his room and his brother's pretty much every week. And they would do this really interesting thing, which I've heard several times. They would wrap them up in their blankets so tightly that they couldn't get out. Sometimes put them in each other's bed. And the parents would come in and not be able to figure out how they got wrapped up so tightly in their blankets. And I've seen this with other people. This is something they do, which is, I think, kind of a little jokey, a little sense of humor, if you will. This is another type of being which is not super well known, but is one I keep hearing consistently, little blue beings. Another lady I interviewed, Sandra is her name. She was taken on board as a little girl. And it was a mantid, 6 feet tall. And she said it gave off a motherly energy and said, "You can call me Mama, Mother," which really rang a bell with me because that is exactly what happened with Dolly. Her case has a lot of parallels with Dolly's. But she said it was a really pleasant experience, and there were tiny little grays there, and she thought at first they were children until she realized that no, they didn't have hair, but they were very playful and were very interested in touching her hair. She had blonde hair, and they wanted to feel it. I mean, you get all different types of grays. I've talked to a lot of people who've seen human-looking ETs. There's people who describe absolutely unique types of humanoids, but they're all humanoids. And most contactees at some point will get that message. You are us, we are you, we are one. So yeah, there are all different types of beings out there. The descriptions people give, I think, are accurate and are what people are seeing, but they're not that far removed from us. They're all humanoids. They're all basically of the same genetic stock, the same heritage, I should say.
Okay, so the idea that all of these different beings are here, the weird part for me and for a lot of people to understand is, you can have a bunch of grays, Preston, that are going to heal you. And then you have the ones that are going to operate on you and scare the daylights and give you nightmares. Same with, we hear it with the humanoids, where some of them are here to help guide you and bring you to that spiritual enlightenment that you need, but others don't seem to be as kind. I mean, how do we tell them apart?
That's easy. Our perception is critical here. Everybody sees things a little bit different from everybody else. Not everybody here is a really good observer and is questioning everything they see and mapping it in their mind, an image of what they're seeing with real serious accuracy. I'll give you, for instance, the Anunnaki are huge beings. They are the Nephilim, and they are winged, and they don't come here. They're not sighted here. It's too hard for them to be here. It's gravity heavy here now, and they can't take it. If you see one, it's going to be on board, and you're going to be shocked when you do, because they are giants, huge beings. That's one way you've really seen something. You see a 8-foot wing guy walk by you, and things are bouncing around as they do. There you go. That is an Anunnaki. Other beings will sometimes, because you're so frightened, we're taught to be afraid here. We're taught to be afraid of everything. We're afraid of our own doctors here. I mean, as a nurse, I've had people try to scratch my eyes out and remember it as total terror. And it's like, oh, Lord, we were just giving you a Band-Aid, or we gave you a shot or took your blood. It's a lot like that for the ETs when humans are on board, because they react in total blind panic and they remember it in an awful way.
Yeah, I've had people tell me flat out that the ETs that I saw were demonic. I said, well, what happened to you? Well, I could just tell because they were staring at me and I got an evil energy off of them. Like, did they hurt you in any way? No, they did not. They just felt that this was a negative experience for them. I've talked to people who've had the exact same experience and come up with absolutely opposite interpretations of what happened to them. So I think it's really important, if you're having experiences especially, to just step back, leave your belief system behind, and look at what is actually happening. It's not always pleasant to be taken on board. This is very clear to me because of the fear factor. It is really hard for some people. It is a negative experience, but I don't think it has to be. I don't think that's the ET's intention. I don't think they're intentionally hurting people. I really don't.
Okay, what about the ones that are, though?
My labs, I think that's happening. I think there are absolutely horrific experiences people are having, which they interpret as ET, and it's probably not.
Yeah.
So that's confusing the issue.
It's also hard to lump all of those who say they've had a bad experience into one group. You really got to speak to everybody individually and get a real clear picture of what you're looking at, and then take that data and report it out as you see it. Preston does do that every time he gets a new person to interview or whatever, and they say it's a negative experience. He doesn't negate it at all. He talks them through it, and he talks to them about, well, what really did happen. And once they relive it and go back, they go, oh, wait a minute, maybe this wasn't so bad. And I think the percentages he's seeing is they're way less negative and more positive. And then, yes, there are my labs out there. There's government torturing people.
Yeah, and there are people who are taken on board, and it's AI grays, and they don't really respond to people's terror. They don't fully understand it. And so people will tell me, I felt like a lab rat. I felt like I was a frog being dissected. And they will interpret this as horrific medical experimentation. And, that is their experience. I'm not going to take away their interpretation. If this is what happened to them, this is what happened to them. But I honestly don't. That's the worst I hear. It's the medical exam, and it freaks people out.
Right.
And it's very difficult for some people. But the contactees who have regular contact at some point usually realize that they're not being hurt. They're not being tortured or killed, or all the negative things that we hear so much in the media. There are flat out disinformation artists out there. There are flat out people who are saying, this happened to me, and I don't believe them for a second.
Yep.
I think that they're lying. So this is a really touchy subject, because there are people out there who are having a real hard time with this. It's not fun. They don't like it. I totally get that. I sympathize. But I'm here to tell you that ETs are not here to torture you. They're just not.
Yeah.
Right. But what about the people who claim to be, having like these eye surgeries and I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a subject if we didn't bring up like anal probing or something along those lines.
Yeah, that happened to Dolly. She had a needle coming down towards her eye. A lady up in Maine, she described the same darn thing. She says, that was the worst experience I had with them.
Yeah.
They took my lungs, and they healed her of this and that, but that was horrific. She did not like it. Maybe Dolly can explain what exactly they're doing there, but Betty Andreasen talked about that. They pulled out her eye and put something in. One guy had that happen. They cured him of color blindness. So he's like, well, maybe that wasn't so bad after all. But at the time, he was horrified. They pulled his eyeball right out of his socket, put it back in.
Yeah. I got hit in the head by a horse jaw once. I had a horse and we were trying to give it a pill. If you twist the ear down, they hold still. So, blow with a tube down their throat. This horse was not taking that, and he swung and he knocked me out. I went straight to the ground. When I woke up, I had this thing wrong in my eye. I couldn't see past it. I was like, oh my, oh no. And ET took me up and they said, we're going to work on your eye. You got to be really still. And I thought, are you giving me Novocaine? And they're like, no, it'll be okay. You'll feel a prick and then it'll not hurt while we're working on you. I'm like, okay. And I literally watched that needle come straight into my eyeball and they fixed it. So there are other things that can happen to you. If you have a really bad situation, if you have cancer and they're trying to help you with it, instead of x-raying you with cobalt radiation, they use a probe. It's a sound probe, a sound, like a sonogram. And we have those too. We use them on our own people. I mean, ask somebody, ask around people, have you ever had that happen to you? Oh yeah, we use that too. It's to get a picture of what's inside your abdomen. That's why they do it.
Yeah, I talked to a lady, Lycia Davidson. She was diagnosed with cancer. They took her on board, and she said the operation was excruciatingly painful. They said, we're sorry, we have to do this. This is the only way. That does happen. People do sometimes experience pain. It's not super common, and often the ETs will put their hand on your forehead and end the pain. But Yeah, I mean, it happened to Betty Hill when she had that little needle going into her navel. She screamed out in pain, and they quickly anesthetized her and apologized after her. They said, "We're sorry, we did not mean to cause you pain." Yeah, I mean, I totally get that this is not pleasant for people sometimes.
No, and I could see that too. I know during one of the first abduction that I actually woke up on the table.
Mhm.
I remember the pain being excruciating. And then hearing my friend's voice say to me, "Don't worry, Dave, it doesn't hurt." And all of a sudden,
Boom.
everything went to feeling ticklish.
Mhm.
And I remember, giggling with my head in the donut while they worked on the back of my head, and I was just laughing, because it felt funny all of a sudden. I went from screaming to laughter within seconds.
Right.
Do you see a lot of that too? Like, are they
Yes.
turning off that pain factor, Dolly?
Yes, absolutely. We're highly suggestible. Everybody is, and they know how to give you a psychic command to not feel. It's like being hypnotized instantaneously, not to feel pain. In the nursing profession, a lot of women who are going to go through a difficult labor will be hypnotized so they feel no pain. And it works. It really does. I've seen people come in for minor surgery hypnotized, and it absolutely works. They feel no pain. It's so they just get you to it quicker, and it works.
One lady I interviewed, Charmaine Scott, she worked at my office, found out I was a UFO researcher. She's like, "Oh, I've got to tell you what happened." She was walking outside her home in Louisiana, I think it was, with two friends, when a UFO came down and was following them. They were running away screaming. They were in abject terror. And this beam comes down and strikes her. And she says as soon as it struck her, her terror left, and she felt this euphoric feeling. There's this weird tranquilizing beam they have. I've heard this from a lot of people. As soon as this beam hits you, all your fear is gone. She says it was just timeless. It was the most wonderful feeling. She says she's never felt a peace like that before or since. So they have these abilities to do that.
The frequency of light. The frequency of light can do it. Okay, what?
Sorry, go ahead, Dolly. I apologize.
The frequency of light can do this to you. That's what they're light workers. They use light technology, and that's how that happens. That's what they're doing. So
Let's get to some audience questions because they are building up here. We got a couple from Christine right off the mat. Could you tell us about your recent remote viewing sightings, Dolly and Preston?
Okay. All right. This one, I'm not using names, and I have to be very careful what I say. This is a really happened. I became aware somebody wrote to me and asked me for help, and they were asking me to locate a young child who was in a flood in California. And I remote viewed the child, and I saw exactly where the child was, and it wasn't good news. And I called her back, and it was like the time between me picking that message up and when I got back to her was about a week. And she said, oh my God, they just found him. And I said, and I told her where he was. And she said, that's exactly where he is. And she said, oh my God, and it was sad what happened to him. And I said, well, he's not gone from his mother. He's still with her. And she should know that. She should, tell her that I said, he's right there with her. He's not letting go of her right now. And he won't until they find his body. It was very, very deeply in the muck and the sand from the flood. And they were having a hard time getting to him because of all the rain that was coming with it. That was my last remote view. That one affected me so bad. It's been about a month now. And I've refused to do anything else for a while because that just ate me up. So that was my last remote view.
I'm not as good at remote viewing as Dolly. Occasionally I can bounce around the house and look at things, but I can do the out-of-body stuff. And last year, tragically, my older brother passed away at age 61 of a heart attack. And whenever that happens, when I lose a loved one, I know at some point I'm going to go out of body and see them. It took me a long time, 2 months, I think, before I finally did see him. And it was amazing because he is a little shorter than me. He was like 5'6", 5'7", always a little sensitive about that. And I came and I saw him he turned around. I'm like, oh my God, Steven. And he was 6.5 feet tall. He was bald. His hair is all grown out. He looked 17 or 18 years old. He was still a little disoriented. He was pretty shocked. He was a skeptic, did not believe in this stuff. But I saw him, and that wasn't the last time. I've seen him a couple of times now. So he's doing better. But yeah, it can be a real shock when people pass away, and I know it was for him. But he sure looked amazing. And he grew almost a foot. It was so funny. Cracked me up.
I've been actually waiting for my uncle to come by. He passed away this past weekend. And it was my dad. Like my dad had 2 younger brothers. Both of them are now gone. And I've been waiting for him to kind of come by here and just say hello. Or give me something, but he hasn't just yet. So I'm just waiting on the time on that one to see how long it'll take him to actually come by. You know, I do know that the younger brother, my uncle, met with him when he was transitioning. My grandfather was kind of waiting in the distance because him and my grandfather had a really rough life together.
Wow.
And yeah, so I think it was the scenario that I kind of got in my head when I kind of looked into it was that my grandfather was kind of standing off in the distance because there was a lot of apologies that needed to be done there and a lot of healing that needed to be done. But my other uncle, it was right there with him when he crossed over.
Oh.
So that was kind of cool. That was really kind of cool. I love that stuff.
We're immortal. We are immortal. I asked my brother, what are you doing? He says, oh, I'm going to school now. I'm like, oh, okay. So he's figuring out how to maneuver on the other side.
We got one more. We got 2 minutes here before we got to go to break, and I want to get in as many questions as we can. Christine, again, Dolly, what do you think about the silver metallic sphere recently mentioned in the congressional hearings?
That was the UFO footage?
Yeah, the Mosul orb.
The Mosul orb. Yeah, that is one of theirs that they're portraying as something else. That is one of their technologies. Absolutely. They have them. It's what I was telling you. Their eyes and ears almost above everything, and it reports back to them what's going on. So yeah.
Awesome.
That
awesome.
Congressional hearing was. I was not happy.
I don't think any of us were happy, my friend. I don't think any of us were happy. So I don't even know how you put it.
Yeah. I roll my eyes. That's all I can do.
The one thing that I have learned, and I am in the very much the minority of this all, and I know I take a lot of heat over this, Preston and Dolly, but over the last number of months since the Chinese balloons and drones came by, it's really, really made me learn that there is a huge difference between UFOs and UAP.
Correct.
And when I hear, I know a lot of the newbies out there, well, it's unidentified anomalous phenomena, which means anomalous could be anything, and therefore it is UFO. No, I understand the theory of that, but have you noticed that as well? Dolly, you said correct.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I've noticed that. Yeah. It's not hard to miss. When you're looking at something yourself, you see it. Do yourself a favor, slow your brain down and start critically taking it apart while you're looking at it. How high can you guess that it is? What's the background with it? All the particulars around it. A lot of people fail to hear the noise of a craft, a jet, until it's already passed by, and that's because it's traveling at Mach, and you can't hear them at first. They're deadly silent until that sound catches up with the jet. Okay, and they don't pay attention to that. They run and go, "Oh my God, I'm seeing you!" No, you're seeing a jet at Mach at distance. It's 30,000 feet up. That's what you're seeing.
That's right. Dolly Safran, Preston Dennett. We have until the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to continue with audience questions right after this. Stay tuned. You can get Preston's books at prestondennett.weebly.com. Check it on out today. Yeah, over about the last year, I've taken a lot of heat over that there is a difference between UAP and UFOs. And there's a lot of our audience who don't like that I do that, but that's okay. I mean, we all are allowed our own opinions on things like that. But yeah, there was a statement by Lou Elizondo after the Chinese balloons that's where it really punched me in the gut, that my feeling was right on that. And then listening to the hearing where, every time they mentioned UAP, it was followed by Chinese drones, Chinese balloons. And that's, getting into the airspace UAP really doesn't have anything to do with UFOs. Preston, are you on that side too, or do you see it differently?
I hate the term UAP. I think it's propaganda. I'm not thrilled with the term UFO, honestly. This field has suffered from semantic disaster from the very beginning. I think we should really be calling them extraterrestrial craft, because a lot of stuff gets pulled under the UFO umbrella, and UAP is, to me, just a way to muddy the waters. I found it very interesting that they were using the term UFO. Look, we shot down a UFO. Why didn't you say UAP? Isn't that the term you want to use now? I find it all really confusing. Honestly, I don't fully understand their intent behind that term. But yeah,
they want to control the narrative. The military and the governments have to have their own wordage for everything. It helps their narrative, not ours, or understanding. They go over the tops of people's heads when they start doing it, and it's meant to keep them in control of what they want you to understand, what they want you not to understand. And so when they changed it, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. This is just another ploy on their part to separate what you know from what they know. At that hearing, the one thing that struck me when I was watching that guy, and I did tap him, he was very sarcastic. He was sarcastic in a way you can't even imagine. He knows very well what they're looking at. They've had the last 50 years of really good technology to already scope them out and know what's going on. And for them to sit there and not tell you the truth and give you 10,000 reasons why this is going to be so hard to coordinate, and we need all these different divisions, and we need this and that. They're just gumming up, again, red tape, and it's all to keep from anything. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
And they're still not talking about contactees at all, or landing cases, or certainly not crash retrievals.
No, and he made it very clear that they're not going to. That was the point from it. Only we know what's going on. Yeah. Crazy.
I'll ask this question right now since we have time. What is your favorite? This is from Super Crazy. What is your favorite UFO ET movie and why?
I like Starman. It's a kind of a sleeper movie. Remember with Robert Hayes and was it Karen Allen? Yeah, I liked that one. I still like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's a really good one. But that other one, and the UFO incident with James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons, I still think holds up. I know they're remaking it. I'm worried about it because I don't think they're going to do a good job, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I'm 65, so the first movie I ever saw that I was allowed to watch was the day the Earth Stood Still with Michael Rennie. I love that movie. And I like Close Encounters of the Third Time. That's my all-time favorite number 2. So
I would say that one's number 1 for me. And number 2 is, the name's all of a sudden escaping me. Flight of the Navigator.
Oh God, I love that. That is so
cool. That one. Yeah, not too long ago.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
You know what? I think Flight of the Navigator, Disney had to be tipped off on that. That is way too real for what people are experiencing with craft, and people who've flown the craft.
Right.
It's just, they had to be tipped off. They had to be.
I agree. Sorry. I agree 100%. That is a really cool movie. It really is.
I like that one. The kids flying the craft, and that's exactly what happened to Dolly. That's what happened to Jay Gardner. That's happened to a lot of people I've interviewed.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Captured the thrill of it all. Absolutely. I mean, if you had been with me, you would have seen me hopping up and down in the seat. Literally, everything I got to see that day was just blowing my mind. I mean,
I bet.
all day.
All right, guys, get you to hold on right there. Thank you, Human Carl, Derek, Susie, Deb, Jeff, and Jerry for the awesome super chats. Thank you for the love and support. If you're looking for Spaced Out Radio gear, you can find it on our website, spacedoutradio.com. And here we go, everyone. Next half hour next. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Final time tonight, we have the great team of Dolly Safran and Preston Dennett, where we are talking aliens and UFOs all night long. We are going to continue with audience questions here. Let's go over to Derek, who wants to give me some of his poker winnings. Absolutely, you should, Derek. Absolutely, you should. I appreciate that. Let's go to Jeff. Is CE5, Preston, we'll start with you on this one, the law of attraction?
I think to a certain extent, yeah, you like attracts like. I think ETs will hear people who put out a telepathic message. Consciousness is key when it comes to CE5s. So, yeah, I'm going to just say a simple yes with that.
How about for you, Dolly?
Yes. If you lift up your consciousness and put a message out, if they can't physically be here, they'll try to contact you psychically. That has happened at CE5s, where people are definitely getting a message. Sometimes, though, it depends on who's running the CE5. You have to be really careful because you can call up something you don't want there. And I'm talking about, negative entities on this planet that'll show up for them. So you have to be really good at what you do. In other words, you have to have somebody who's working the CE5 that knows what they're doing to guide you through it. Because anything you're thinking and feeling, you can pull in. That's absolute. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they'll show up for just one or two people there too, and no one else will see. I've heard, that happened in one of Dolly's things. It happened in some of the CE5 groups I was doing. Some people would see stuff and others wouldn't.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to Angela here. So the government is sending negative thought messages which override the positive ET messages?
Sure. You watch TV every day? Do you listen to the news media? Do you play video games? Are you in the alternate world with those big masks on your face? You bet. They have a way of messing with you, yes.
Yeah, the media is somewhat fear-based. It loves a good, scary story, but our governments are putting forth, using our tax dollars, an ET threat narrative, which I don't think is true. It's one of the reasons I think research in the subject is so important. I don't think the ETs are here to hurt us or take over. I understand it can be very scary, but I honestly don't feel like they're a threat. I don't. They've been here forever. Far longer than we have.
Well, I get you there. I get you there. And you know what? Let's get to another question here from our audience. This time we are going to head to Ian over in the UK. Dolly and Preston, what do ETs eat?
Not Reese's Pieces.
No. They like vegetables. They like fish. They like fruit. They will eat meat. I've eaten, but only not on board. They will eat meat where their homeworlds are. They eat their own, and it's fresh. They have, you know how we have omnivore mouths, our teeth are spiked as well as crunchy. They have more of the needle type teeth, and they really love fish for that reason. They're big fish eaters. Um, I gave Mama a banana once, and I brought it on board with me, and I said, "Will you eat the banana?" And I opened it up, and I halved it, and I offered her half, and she smelled it. She says, "Yes, I've smelled these before," and she said, "I'm not sure." And then she said, "For you, I'll take a bite." I said, "Okay." So she took a bite, and she went, bleh. She did not like it, but she'll eat the hell out of an apple. Okay, she likes figs and things like that, and grapes. Um, Talata doesn't eat, so I've never, wouldn't know what he would eat. I know the Anunnaki love fruits and vegetables and fish as well, and they do eat red meat as well. So
I interviewed one guy, Kevin Cameron. He was a medic. He was taken on board and saw praying mantis ETs and asked them what they eat, and they said, "We eat fruits and vegetables and fish mostly."
That's interesting.
Yep, that's what they told him.
That is very interesting. I would have never suspected fish, because a lot of times when I hear of this stuff, it's always that aliens are vegan and they're plant-based and they don't want people eating meats of any source.
they don't want us eating our meats. Our meat is tainted, and they think it's unhealthy for us, and to stop. They want you more vegan, but now we've messed with the vegetables as well. So they're now the big thing with them is just, y'all just stop polluting yourselves. Stop it. You're not eating healthy here, period.
All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Mike. Any reports of dogs being taken or pets having chips put in them that you know of?
I had my first dog my mom got after I disappeared for a day from the house, 6 hours. And she was a retired German Shepherd police dog, and her name was Heidi. And they spent 2 weeks training her to be with me and to, know that I'm the one she's guarding. And right after that, I was taken up. And this time I remember because they brought Heidi with me. They actually let her on board with me, and she stayed with me the entire time. You see them petting them. They love animals. When I was working in the zoo, my family zoo, we had a gibbon named Sarah. And I loved Sarah very much. And Sarah went out with me a couple times. They gaga goo over animals. They love animals. You can bring your dogs when they come and get us, or your cats. That's not a joke. So.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I've actually just been going through the databases I have asking that exact question. And yeah, 100%. They will take people on board with their dogs. And mostly dogs is what I've heard. I've got a few cat cases, but there was one case which made me laugh out loud when I heard it, because this guy's kind of a hermit type guy, hunter, and he has his dog Hunterbone. And the ETs came and pulled them both on board, and his dog Hunterbone went straight for the grays and tried to bite them. And so they instantly paralyzed him. And he says Hunterbone floated around that chip like a stuffed dog for the whole time. And finally they let him go. And yeah, people are taken on board with their pets.
That is hilarious. All right, let's move on to Peter here. Are abductees currently incarnated ETs?
Oh, that's a good question. In this universe, we're all in source together, even the ETs. We're all consciousness. You can be born and reincarnate anywhere in this universe you want to be. Just because you're here doesn't mean that you're here permanently. So you can be an ET sometimes, you can be a human sometimes, you can be, here. You can go anywhere. It's a thing. So
yeah, I'm going to say yes to that. That's what Sarah Shaw and one of the people in the Tonga Canyon contacts were told. I know that Michael Lindemann had a case like that. Edith Fiore as well. One of her clients was told that you were one of us in a past life. I think probably that happened to me. I have some memories of that. Jay Gardner I interviewed. He believes that. Another guy, gosh, I forget his name. He's in one of my books. Absolutely believes he was an ET in a prior life. I think probably all of us at some point will incarnate as ETs if we haven't already.
All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Sovereign. Someone recently put a pin on the Malibu underwater base, and Google left it up. Do you think this base extends inland, and how far?
Yeah, well, I can answer that because I certainly looked into it. I've done a bunch of investigation into the USO, unidentified submersible objects, off the coast there, and put them all on a map. And they were clustered around this so-called Malibu anomaly. I am not so sure ETs built it. From my understanding, this is like an ancient monument. As far as I know, there is a tunnel that goes through all the way to Area 51 and perhaps even farther. So I'm not so sure it's an ET base as we would think of it. But I don't think it's a natural structure either, because I did talk to one guy who talked to a Native American elder, and they said, "Oh, we know about this. We didn't construct it. The sea levels used to be much lower, and they could fish off the end of it." But yeah, I believe it's an artificial construction. I don't know that I would call it an ET base necessarily.
Do you think then, second part of this question, that there are more bases in the mountains?
I think that probably ETs, at least at some point, do have bases on Earth. Yeah. I don't think that there's any reason to disbelieve that. Dolly could probably speak with more authority on that, but I think that there's at least a few of them.
Yeah, there are one and two, not so much in California. California's got a couple of fault lines they don't want to dig into, period. That would be bad. So they don't really have them in California. What's off of Malibu is, like Preston said, it's a structure, ancient structure. And it was used by another people at a different time. ET does use underwater for a couple of reasons. They can go very low and hang out there for a while unobserved and unbothered by anybody. But when they create a light gate, sometimes it's better just to create the gate underwater to go back and forth through. And you have proof of that by fishermen who say, this light was huge and it was under me and I don't know what the hell, and then suddenly we start seeing UFOs. That's a light gate being opened and they're coming through and coming out or going in. So, yeah.
All right, let's go to Anastasia, the birthday girl. Do the extraterrestrials ask for permission?
Always, yes. They don't do anything to you without your they don't go against anything you say. We're all autonomous beings. We're all free, and we're all capable of making decisions for ourselves. And they always ask, or they explain to you what could happen, and you still make the ultimate decision, yay or nay, whether you're going to go through it or not. Yes, they ask.
I will say that there are people who do not feel that they have granted permission and they are being taken against their will. That is their perception. I do think also that we have a tendency to have mixed feelings and compartmentalized consciousness, and ETs come and they talk to your whole consciousness. So if part of you is saying, yeah, I'm okay with this, and your ego is like, no, I'm out of my mind, I don't go away, there can be some confusion there. So I think that might be what's going on in some of the cases where people feel like they're being kidnapped against their will. But yeah, Dolly says that now that doesn't happen. So.
All right, let's go to Derek. So I got a question. Most people that have been deducted or abducted, were you abducted while you were sleeping?
Who was he talking about, me or Preston?
I'll assume you, Dolly.
Never. When I was younger, I only slept 2 hours a day. It was really hard to catch me asleep, and I was on alert all the time. I'm a military brat. Trust me, if you made a noise, I was up. Okay, so no, I was never ever taken or contacted while asleep. I've always been 100% awake. So yeah.
I know people who have told me they've woken up on board a craft. So whether or not they were taken while they were asleep or didn't remember being taken, it's pretty, not a lot of people do remember how they got on board the craft. So that could be a factor here.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on. Ian over in the UK is asking, human mutilations, what do you think's happening here?
I think that we're doing it. I've never heard of one, and then about a month ago, I started hearing people talking of it, and I know that we're mutilating each other children. I mean, it just came up into Congress the other day, a little boy whose mother was looking for him for almost a year, and they were taken to a place, and she identified his body. They had taken both his kidneys when they took him. They mutilated him to get them. He went into his back. That's serious stuff. We do that to each other. They do not. They have no need or desire. They're trying to help us, and they're trying to keep us whole. And the only people killing, mutilating, raping, disrespecting are us.
Yeah, I looked into it. There's a smattering of so-called cases. One which is pretty well known, I think is the most famous, allegedly took place on a military base. That raised my eyebrows. I wonder about it because there's so many people having encounters, and the number of alleged human mutilations, which are well verified, if that's a word I loathe to use, so I don't really believe it's true. It's 5 or 10 of them? If this were truly happening, I think we would know it by now. There'd be no question. So I am very leery of these reports.
All right. We got a bunch more to go in about 8 minutes, so we got to figure this out here. Let's go to Joe. How many dead people have come back and told their stories about being killed by aliens?
I have no clue. What?
I've never heard that. No.
No.
I don't really get that. If you're dead, Joe, how do you come back?
Right.
I'll ask that question next time I'm out of body, see if I can get some answers. But no, I've never heard that.
Back to Ian in the UK. What do you guys personally think about the Chris Bledsoe story?
I find it very compelling. I met him at a convention. He was the nicest guy. He was healed of Crohn's disease. It was very well verified. There was other people who saw the whole thing. There was some really spiritual aspects to his story, which I haven't fully explored. But yeah, I think he's a legit guy with a legit case. He's really an amazing guy, very kind.
Dolly?
I do not know too much about Chris Bledsoe, but since hearing about it recently, I did look it up, and Preston's probably exactly right. It's a legit case. It really happened.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go to Camille, who will be a guest here, I think, tomorrow night. Yeah, Camille James Harmon will be our guest tomorrow night. She's in our chat room tonight.
Okay.
Camille, I got to meet at UFOCon 2023. She's amazing. What is the triangular puncture wound, and what is the square grid array mark that people will find on their bodies?
You know, I've had a lot of different things go on with me. My implant, I actually have a scar where they implanted it. Okay. Everywhere else, I don't have any scars at all, and they've never even left a scoop mark on me. I have asked about it, and some procedures they do will cause a triangular mark because the end of the instrument they use is triangular, and they seal a wound with it. Okay. So I can see, but they're supposed to go away right away. They shouldn't last very long. That's what I was taught. The ones that last, I have no clue. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they use a lot of different equipment on a lot of different people, and people will report having scars that heal very quickly, or cuts, or different types of body marks, and triangles sometimes too. That comes up a lot. We have that with inoculations, little marks on our body. I don't necessarily see this as being a negative thing, but yeah, it's one of the things I think still needs more research, because it is fairly commonly reported, marks on the body, bruises, triangular marks, mostly puncture wounds, scars, does come up.
Gotcha. All right. Continuing on here, let's go to Super Crazy. What do you guys think about the alleged weird paranormal stuff at Skinwalker Ranch? Preston, let's start with you.
Oh, Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know what to think of it. I think some of this is, I don't know. I have not investigated that area. I know that there's a lot of reports in the Wichita Basin with UFOs. I am reluctant to sort of conflate these phenomena altogether, because there's poltergeist phenomena, which is not necessarily related to UFOs. I wonder if some of that is disinformation. There may be certain areas that are just prone to large levels of paranormal activity. That could be what's going on. I don't know. It's very hard for me to speak to the Skinwalker Ranch, but I'd like to understand what's going on there.
I've actually thought about remote viewing in, and I'm really getting close to actually giving it a go. The only reason I haven't done it is they have the ability now to detect remote viewers when they're coming in places. And I have a feeling that they're teched up there, pretty teched up. And so I don't really want to go in and involve myself in it. I thought if Preston went out there, that'd be cool. I could walk around as an assistant and just keep my mouth shut and look around. But I didn't think I would be on the property, to be honest with you, because if you know who I am, you know what I'm capable of, and I just don't think I'm welcome there. So, I don't know.
I read a book on the case. It's interesting, whatever's going on there.
Let's go to Dana, first-time listener in our chat room, so thank you, Dana. Preston, do you plan to write another book about Dolly's experiences, part 2?
I do, because every time I keep learning new stuff. She told me not too long ago about visiting the elders. They have, the Greys have elders that they go to for wisdom. I think that would be really cool. Or flying in huge fleets. She told me an experience. I'm like, that wasn't in the book. Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff, and I really also want to focus more on us in the second book on the message that the ETs want to impart to all of us here on Earth, and the importance of psychic development and that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully start working on that this year, and if possible, get it out as this year or next at the latest. Is that good, Dolly? Can we do that?
Yeah.
2 minutes left, 2 questions. Sovereign wants to know, Preston, I know you've uncovered a good amount of rare Sasquatch sightings around Southern California. Do you have any rare info on giant bones exhumed from the mainland Southern California area, and where?
No, I don't. I know Catalina Island supposedly have giants. Lovelock Cave in Nevada. The evidence of giants is absolutely compelling. And I think at some point we're going to get proof of Bigfoot as well. I think we already have it, honestly. But no, I don't have any really good new firsthand information other than what's in the public arena.
I would agree. All right. The Michael Leger on Vancouver Island is asking, Dolly, Preston, do aliens believe in keeping promises?
Yes, absolutely. If they tell you something, take it for what it really is. They will not back down, and they will fulfill it, whatever they promise you. By the other token, they don't promise lightly either. It just depends on what you want from them.
1 minute to go. Dolly, will Dave, a.k.a. me, ever get to fly the craft? Will they land in my backyard? Because it's big.
Yes.
Perfect landing pad.
When they come back, I'm going to make sure. You're one of the people on my list. I'm going to make sure that you get to fly. I'm going to make sure.
You know what? I just want this, guys. I want to go outside of my backyard, and I want things to be conscious like I am right now. Yes. I don't want none of this nighttime falling asleep stuff, and then the debate. I want to walk on that craft. I want to be like James Earl Jones, going to the cornfield on Field of Dreams. Right. That's what I want. That's the dream for me. I want that. I mean, sure, you may get a little radiation and stuff like that, but that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But
we have protocols. Let me tell you how it's going to go, okay? We have protocols. What we do, another reason we go into the water is to lose the heat and the radiation off the skins of the craft and around it. We'll go cool off, and we'll wait till it's safe to come down. We'll be sending messages out, don't approach yet. We'll let you know when it's safe. When we come out, you're good. And then when we come out, we will stand there and go, come on, let's go. And I want you to walk on with eyes wide open, okay? I want you to see it all, okay?
I'm waiting. Dolly Safran, Preston Dennett, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Very much appreciated. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. Then Super Duke returns for the Cryptid Report. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. When, Dolly? When?
It's coming soon. As soon as our magnetosphere is stable again, they will be back everywhere in force. And I'm promising you, I got 3 people on my list, okay? And you're one of them. And when you come down, I'm going to put you in the seat. You're going to fly, okay?
I want to fly it. I want to fly it.
Right.
I can't wait.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys. This was a lot of fun. I love you two. You two are amazing to not only me, but Spaced Out Radio. And thank you for everything you guys do.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. And mine especially. And I thank you very much for just, helping us out and get the word out and stuff and talk to people. That it means a lot.
Anytime you guys want to come on, just let us know.
Okay.
All right. Much love, guys. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Right. Preston and Dolly, everybody. Gotta love them. Gotta love them. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the next hour, everyone. All right. It's almost time. How awesome are Preston and Dolly? Just an amazing power couple in this field of knowledge. Carl, I will be sending that out. I'm just getting all the so an update on Vegas. I'm just getting all the t-shirts sized up and printed out. You will be getting tickets very soon. You can put the blame on me. I've had a real busy time at work, my daytime job the last week and a half, and that's my fault. My fault. You will be getting them soon. Yeah, promise you. They're coming. They are coming, I promise. Hey, random gee. What's happening? How's your underwear? All right, big thank you tonight to Derek, ×2, Human Carl, Susie, Deb, Jeff, and Jerry for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate the love, everyone, and cannot wait to see you all in Vegas. I'm getting pumped up right now. Pumped up. It was a year ago since our first event, and I've been getting all the pictures on Facebook, and I'm just pumped up.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vapography. Vapography is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is that time once again where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I had been planning to visit my family, who lived in the remote areas of British Columbia, Canada, for quite a few months now. It had been years since I had last seen them, and I decided it was time to make the trip. So I packed my bags, got in my car, and set out on the long road trip. The drive was peaceful and uneventful for the most part, and I enjoyed the beautiful scenery that passed by my windows. The mountains loomed large in the distance, and the forests were thick and lush. But as I made my way deeper into the remote areas, things started to change. The road became narrower, the forest grew denser, and finally, the sun set. I realized I was low on gas. I spotted a small gas station up ahead and pulled in, relieved to be able to fill up my tank and continue on my journey. As I drove on, I realized I had made a grave mistake. I should have taken a map or a GPS with me because I was utterly lost, and there were no signs to help me. The road twisted and turned, and I was driving through a dense forest stretching on for what felt like forever. Then, suddenly, I saw something in the distance. It was some sort of figure standing in the middle of the road, and as I drew closer, I realized it was a woman. She was dressed in an old-fashioned looking clothing. Her hair was long and dark. I slowed down, wondering if she needed help. But as I got closer, I saw that something was off about her. Her eyes were empty, and her skin was pale as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at me, and I realized she wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me. I freaked out for a minute, contemplating what to do. And as she looked at me again, I suddenly had this wave of fear. I sped up, feeling a chill run down my spine. But as I drove away, I saw more figures in the distance. They were all standing in the middle of the road, watching me as I drove by. I realized they were all dressed in old-fashioned clothing, and their eyes were empty, just like the first woman. I tried to shake off the unease that had settled over me at this point, but it was useless. I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched from all directions, and that something was just wrong with this place. As I drove on, I saw more and more figures, all standing in the middle of the road watching me as I drove by. Finally, I came upon a small town and pulled into a motel to spend the night. Again, I just could not brush off this strange experience on the road, but it was hard to shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me and seemingly embedded itself into my bones. The next day, I decided to ask the locals about the strange figures on the road. They told me legends about a group of settlers who had been lost in the woods and had died in a snowstorm. Their bodies were never recovered, and their spirits were said to haunt these woods, looking for a way out. I saw the figures again as I drove back on that same road. This time I slowed down, rolled down my windows, hoping to get a closer look. But as I drew near, the figures vanished into the thin air around me, leaving me alone on the deserted road. I'll never forget that experience. As I drove on, I did have a great time with my family. But years later, I still get a little chill down my spine when I think about the figures in the street. I don't know if the stories are true, but they seem to be true from what I saw.
And that's why we love the Swamp Dweller around here, as we love it when he comes on in every Monday through Friday night to take us on a spooky journey. If you want more, you can head on over to his channel, Swamp Dweller Reads, on YouTube, and check it on out. He's got thousands of stories free right there for you. From the swamp to the mountains of Montana, where Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is chasing down the Sasquatch. If you love a good Wookiee story, this is the man to bring it. Here comes Super Duke of the Cryptid Report. Super Duke, the Cryptid Report with Super Duke. Always good to have Super Duke back in the hot seat here on the Cryptid Report, as he's just back from the lovely state of Nebraska at a Bigfoot conference right there, which I will be apparently attending next year. I'm excited about that. Super Duke, it's good to have you back, my man. How you been doing? We'll get you to unmute your mic and get this thing rolling. There you go.
Oh, it's good to be back in Montana. Nice to be back on the show. Howdy, everybody from Big Sky Country. It was the conference was a blast, according to one of the presenters there, who I do not have permission to name, but he said strictly off the record, because I don't have permission to name him, that he had never seen a conference before with so many heavy hitters all at the same place at the same time. And this was the guy at the conference who had been to more conferences by a large margin than anybody else there. So that was some pretty high praise. And yeah, it was an amazing lineup. You know, several people that had been on your show before were there. Of course, Robin McRae was the headliner. I was right before her on Saturday. We also had William Lunsford, Stephen Hill, Keith Crabtree, the guy that wore the suit in The Legend of Boggy Creek, and a whole bunch of other amazing people. So it was really a blast. Next year, they're going to be moving it up the road about 20 miles to Grand Island, which is where the state fairgrounds are. And same thing will be going on there as was going on this year, which is to say, huge comic book convention. And it's going to be right across in the building across the way from where the Bigfoot convention is going on. So should be spectacular. The people that run everything over there are the ones that actually have been canvassing Harriet, the owner of the Nebraska Bigfoot Museum, and the person that puts on the Bigfoot conference, to have it over there, and now they've got all the arrangements done. So now it gets to move to a bigger venue in bigger town, and that should help keep things going. And she's got great lineup for next year, including people like Blaine Tyler and Dave Scott and Sabila Irwin and the amazing Robert Kreider. So you're definitely going to want to go next year. And yep, good stuff.
When you go to a Bigfoot event like that, I mean, Duke, there's so many different idealisms about what this creature is. There's so many different opportunities to hear other people's research and experience. What's in it for you? What do you love?
I love watching people's heads explode. I'm one of those people that doesn't do a traditional Bigfoot speech for an hour. I just bring up an hour's worth of video and stand there and point and go, there's one right there. So in other words, I cheat. And according to the crowd, I was in the top 2 at least of the best presentations, in part thanks to the help of Kelly Shaw from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. He took a piece of video that we shot up here almost 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years ago, with Eric Adventure Man actually is the one that filmed it and accidentally got 3 of them on camera. And Kelly did zoom ins on them so you could see them quite clearly. One of them was ducking away so the camera couldn't see him, hid behind a tree, did a wood knock, then stuck his head out again to see if the camera was still on him. It was. So that's pretty convincing because you can see him moving in the background, you can see his face, and you can see 2 other ones in the foreground tussling with each other, managing to stay mostly out of sight, but they're basically behind a small pine tree, so in between the branches you can see all this movement and everything. Something going on back there. So that was fun, and then I just showed the other clip that I put out recently, giant Sasquatch right behind me, where we got the one behind me with a nose the size of my head. A very big boy. But he doesn't move. He's smart. He just stands there, even closed his eyes, so you can't see his eye because that would have gave him away right away. But it's still too close to the front of the wood line, so very obvious. You could see the whole brow ridge above his eye, and then coming down around the other side of his nose, and then across the bottom of his face, just above his mouth. So there's about, a good third of his face exposed. So he's really obvious. And when you zoom in on it, again, Kelly Shaw helped with that. You can tell when you get a closer look at it that, that's not pareidolia. That's not part of a tree trunk. It's skin. So, yeah. But anyway, that was a blast. Actually, my favorite part of it, of course, was getting to meet people that I've had on my channel before and haven't had a chance to meet before, like Blaine Tyler and Stephen Hill. And we also had a big challenge given to us, should we choose to accept Mission Impossible. You think you can find evidence in Nebraska? You've never done boots on the ground field research in Nebraska. You think you can find evidence there? And I said, challenge accepted. How much time do we have? And they said, you have a day. I went, okay, 24 hours, so we get to do nighttime stuff and everything. And they went, nope, just daytime. And I went, okay, so we're in one of those states where there's not supposed to be any Bigfoot, and we have half a day, just the daylight hours, to go look for them. Challenge still accepted. So to stack the deck in my favor, I contacted Richard Soul from the Noxagigas Project, who's been on my show about 8 times, and has done shows like Bigfoot DNA, Bigfoot in the Black Death, and what was the most recent one? Bigfoot Eye Glow, the science of Bigfoot Eye Glow. And he does research in Nebraska. So I said, hey, Richard, any hot spots we can go hit? Because we're on a really limited schedule. We only got the daytime hours. And he said, yeah, I'll line up a couple for you. And I should be able to get Thursday off. And I went, okay. So then I just started to stack the deck even more. So I got a hold of Christy Sci-Fi, who was also going to be there, and said, hey, plan on going out Bigfooting on Thursday. Because you're getting there and flying in Wednesday night, so we're going to go Bigfooting Thursday before the conference. And she was like, okay. So we got the Gulf Coast covered. And then Blaine Tyler, of course, was there early. So I hornswoggled him into going along with us, too. So we got somebody from Northeast Ontario with us, too. And then I had my local research assistant, the Viking, one-man Viking death squad, Ashton, drove me down there. And he was with us, too. And he's actually caught him on video before, too. So we had a pretty invincible team, and we were all psyched. Well, this is still going to be a really tough challenge, even with everything stacked in our favor. And and then things got worse because Rich couldn't get all the time off that he expected, and he had to go back in mid-afternoon. And everybody was exhausted from either driving or flying in, so they didn't want to get up at 6 a.m. and drive 2 hours to where his locations are from where we were at. So by the time we finally got there, we had literally 2.5 hours on the ground to try and find anything. And we got amazing drone footage, and we've got huge structures, and we've got multiple tracks, and we heard a wood knock, and we've got at least 2, potentially more, Bigfoot on camera. So we're going to call this the first episode, the Nebraska edition of a new show that I'm going to do periodically called Inevitably Finding Bigfoot.
That's a nice play there, because we all know the television show never seemed to find anything.
Nope, we just figured we'd get it right from the first episode. We'll find them every episode, so you don't have to waste your time watching BS. There you go.
Wow, just dropping bombs just like that.
Yep.
Dropping bombs just like that.
Well, I mean, there's the wannabes and the posers, and then there's the real people that can actually do this stuff. And we just figured we'd show them what real and actual looks like. And we do make lots of jokes and pick on each other because, 2.5 hours, we had time to waste, so we could do comedy routines and stuff while we were gathering evidence.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I'm really rubbing the salt in, aren't I, Dave? Yeah. Oh, well.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to next year now. Out of everybody who spoke at that conference, what impacted you the most?
Well, I really enjoyed seeing Keith Crabtree actually get up there and make a speech. It's the first time he's ever done a public speech. And, 50 years since The Legend of Boggy Creek came out, he's only ever done 2 interviews. And he is a great speaker and very interesting to listen to. So that was the high point for me. We recorded that, and the audio on it's bad, so I've got to tweak that and make it loud enough for you to hear it. But we're going to put that out. And so at this point, only speech at a Bigfoot conference that Keith Crabtree's ever made. So that was really fun. The whole theme was mainly around the Legend of Boggy Creek and research in that area, and the fact that this is still going on. And a good example of that was having Stephen Hill, the Sulphur River Sasquatcher, and William Lunsford, the Folk Monster Hunter, both there showing all the evidence they got. And speaking of William, he finally got his book done. It is now available. He had copies there available for sale. Searching for the unfindable, and you know how William is, so the book's about like that thick. It's like a huge phone book from a metro area, and packed full. And he's got all kinds of cool pictures and stuff, and they're all the game cam pictures and stuff that they got that he references and everything.
Very nice. Very nice. Duke, for a lot of people out there, like right now they're advertising a giant Sasquatch conference here in British Columbia. And, I looked at the list, and I don't mean to be critical because I don't want to sound like a jerk here. But, I mean, I looked at the list of people, and I'm just like, why and why and why and mainly how on one other person? I mean, this conference is being advertised all over the province. It's getting a lot of traction on social media. And good for them. This is the first one. I think it's going to be good. But, I mean, if you're somebody who is an enthusiast or believes in this subject and want to see what it's like, but you don't know much about the community, how do you judge, for the public's sake, how do you judge the speakers if you don't know who they are?
Yeah, exactly. That's a perennial problem. And, it's great to hear that they're putting together a conference up there. And sidestepping for a second here, I got a guest coming up on my show who's also from British Columbia, reference some of the areas you hang around in, and has stories from multiple areas in British Columbia and some pictures to actually back up some of it too. But he's already been on Sabila Irwin's show, and he's going to be making another appearance to mine. And between the pictures he's got and other things that, once again, the amazing Sabilo is going to do the artwork for, it should be pretty riveting, because boy, has he got some wow stories from up there in British Columbia. But as far as that goes, knowing who's worth seeing, see, that's the problem. If it's some of the local boys, I mean, nobody can know all the B-string Bigfoot researchers across the continent. It's impossible. Unless you're local, you have no idea who they are. So that's a problem right there. And then the other thing is, a lot of the big name draws aren't necessarily worth listening to. And they'll do the same thing every year, the same lecture, virtually word for word. If you've seen them once, you've seen them a million times. It's like that one band that never gets a new album, and they just tour the same material for like 5 or 6 years. And they wonder why people don't want to come and see them anymore. Yeah, that kind of thing. But it's really hard to judge. I mean, I don't know how to give you any kind of sound guidance on that, other than if you see the list of who it is, go research them yourself. That's pretty much, or get word of mouth from other people in the Bigfoot community that might know who they are.
Yeah, it is crazy, because I've had literally about 25 people, 30 people come up to me recently, even in town. Are you going to the Bigfoot conference? Are we going to see you at the Bigfoot conference? Are you going? And I'm just like, no, not going. They're like, how come? I'm like, well, they got a couple people there that I don't agree, that I believe they're sending the wrong message about Sasquatch, and I'm just not interested in supporting that.
You mean like monkey guy? It's a monkey.
Yeah, monkey guy is going to be there. Don't even get me started on monkey guy.
Yeah, we got a couple of monkey guys down here. They're running some kind of ape conservancy or something. They're looking for something that isn't out there. It's not a big monkey. Sorry. Hate to burst your bubble.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well. I just think, I guess in my goal of everything, and I'm not saying, it may sound a little egotistical here, I just want people to get the proper message, Duke. And I'm not saying my message is right, because I know I've been wrong just as much as I've been right. Okay. But I just want to make sure that people are getting the proper message, the proper information. And I think that's why when I look at a lot of these conference lists, and not just this one that I'm critiquing right now, because it is the first one. Okay. But I'm looking at other conferences, whether it's UFOs or paranormal or whatever it may be, because there's a lot of conferences out there in every state, in every province. And I would just want to see, the messages that are getting through. That's a big one for me. Is the right message getting through in all of these different conferences?
Yeah, wow, that's a hard one to know. I mean, being that we are not 1,000% sure on anything, even if we think we got a really good guess, we're still not 100% sure. So how do you make that judgment that, I know more than all the rest and this is the right thing and blah, blah, blah. And really you can't. But what you can do is Occam's razor and cut away all the stuff that isn't likely to have anything to do with it. And the more research we do and the more information we get on these subjects, the more that we can exclude things that it likely or definitely isn't. And that sort of narrows down the pool of the options of what it can be. So it's forward progress. And yeah, when you got somebody coming along preaching something like in the Bigfoot community, the same thing that the old Pac West guys were preaching 30 years ago, and they don't have any new ideas. They haven't listened to anybody that's put out a show in the last 10 years. They aren't following any of the modern researchers, and they're just reading books from the old guys. So they've got that same opinion. You're wasting your time. They haven't learned anything.
No, and I would agree with that. On that note, Duke, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. When we return with Super Duke and the Cryptid Report, we are going to get into some stories that Duke has come up with for our audience, which is you. And they're always very entertaining. They're always worth the information that Duke provides. That's why he is the king of World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube. and all around social media. Super Duke's Cryptid Report on Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Stay tuned, everybody. We've got another half hour to go. All right, we is clear.
Hey, Papa. Yeah, I got some reports from the Pac West area, Northern California, and along that strip of land up in there from the old tribes in that area and some of the weird stuff that was happening between them and the big forest guys. And, you know, it's just pretty much any region you go into, the tribes all have kind of a different take on it. Some of them are like, you know, it's a big monster in the mountains. And the other ones are like, oh no, they're just a tribe of really hairy, tall people we used to trade with. It's just completely night and day difference, tribe to tribe. You know, in some regions they all kind of have a similar idea, but not necessarily. And it's just always boggles my mind to hear the legends, folklore, and reports from the local tribes. But I'm gonna step out and have a smoke for a second here, and then I will be back.
You go. That's Super Duke. Super Duke. It's good times. Good times. Well, it's the first day in a long time my jaw hasn't hurt. Pretty happy about that. Dave don't know my chest hair looks like Taco Bell meat. Ew! That's gross. That is terrible. Look at love. No clench in the jaw. Use the buttocks instead, y'all. Oh my, that's hilarious. I'm honestly not that red. It's the lighting in here today. I don't know what that is. Kim and Ari, how are you? Awesome. I'm having a good night tonight. Having a good night tonight. Hope you guys are too. Hello, Skip to Malou. Here comes Super Dookie. I'm digging the hat. Very much digging the hat.
Well, glad you like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mountain man hat, not a cowboy hat. Actually, this is a down under hat. The Aussies like this. It's an Aussie hat.
Thank you tonight to Derek Times 2, Jerry, Jeff, Deb, Susie, and Human Carl for the amazing super chats. We very much appreciate the love, everybody. And we'll give you a Vegas update here at the end of the show, so stick around if you're going to Vegas. I'll give you a quick update.
Yeah. Can hardly wait to put out the video.
Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Super Nuke is with us. We'll get to Bigfoot in just a moment. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio is back. We are going to get into some creepy cryptid stories on the Cryptid Report. Super Duke, what do you got for us tonight?
Well, tonight we got some stories courtesy of the de facto Sasquatch. And these ones are from over on the Pac West Coast. Specifically about a type of Bigfoot with an unpronounceable name. I always love those. Get back to the beginning of this. There we go. Here again, the oft-mentioned a reduced Sasquatch number is John W. Burns in his time wrote more than 50 Sasquatch-related articles. And, of course, this famed researcher is from up in your area, Dave. During a request from the Vancouver Sun in 1957, Burns replied in a letter that he was amazed at the talk of searches for the Sasquatch. He said he, quote, regrets that these harmless people of the wilderness are to be hunted with dogs as if they were criminals, and if captured, exposed to the gaping and gaze of the curious. They have been referred to as monsters, but they have committed no monstrous acts. It appears our veneer of civilization does not hesitate to even use monsters for commercial purposes, unquote. The Douglas language is purported to be the language of the Sasquatch. Let me say that again. The Douglas language was purported to be the language of the Sasquatch, according to some of the First Nation tribes in British Columbia, specifically the Chehalis and the Lillooet. The attribution of the Douglas language was first acknowledged by J.W. Burns in his writings about the Chehalis people. The Douglas language was spoken by the Lillooet River Indians who lived around Port Douglas at the mouth of Harrison Lake. It was not a language spoken by the Chehalis, but it was such that they could figure out and understand some of the common words. It was the member of the Chehalis tribe living on the reservation who told Burns the Sasquatch spoke Douglas or a similar dialect to it. And this has come up in other local native languages where they seem to have some common words that are almost identical that they share with the local Sasquatch. So that may be a good indication of who actually had friendly relations with them. She goes on to say, we should also salute Burns' work documenting certain behaviors and characteristics of the early day Sasquatch. He was a true pioneer, truly deserving of a noticeable place in Sasquatch research history. Another 85 years would pass before any man rivaled the previous published tribal remembrances of North American Aboriginals. Retired law enforcement author Dave Paulides published 2 books devoted to the recollections of Northern California Hoopa tribe in conjunction with the artistic renderings of Cheyenne Arapaho chief Harvey Pratt. It is fair to say that in their two books, The Hoopa Project and Tribal Bigfoot, the number of stories collected from California's Hoopa Nation undoubtedly surpassed the number of stories published by J.W. Burns, a major accomplishment in our time. No other author has lived with the natives and chronicled their stories, except perhaps Dr. Ed Fish. Anthropologist Dr. Ed Fish, who I have the greatest respect, probably chronicled some of the best information about early Native Americans and associated stories involving Sasquatch-like life forms called Skanecum, and unpronounceably written in a way that doesn't sound anything like the way it's pronounced, but pronounced Chwa-ni-ti, which translates as tall, hairy, and smells like burnt hair, which is an interesting characterization because I smelled one before that was close to me, and he had this really peculiar smell of like wet dog and electrical fire. So, smells like burnt hair. Dr. Fish carefully chronicled the Spokane Indian description as 9 foot tall, possessing a very strong stench, and was never known by any of the Indians to harm human beings. The big ones were not hunted. The haired ones were simply considered part of the Spokane Indian environment. These beings were, he said, a prankster, especially pranks involving horses and dogs. Well, the ones in my area are pranksters, and that's only about 200 miles from here over at Spokane. Both these varieties were known to inhabit deep caves that tunneled through mountain terrain. One of the most interesting of Dr. Fish's revelations for me was the strong, unshakable belief the Spokane Indians had concerning the haired beings. According to his work, the strongest belief was that these beings were not animals, but human, a point summarily ignored by contemporaries in the field of anthropology and ape theorists alike. Like Burns and Paulides, the doctor wrote about the kidnapping of young women from the Spokane Nation. Borrowing from his text here, he wrote, quote, "These beings were known by the Spokane Indians to interact with human females. One girl was kidnapped by these people and was not returned until she was a grown woman. When returned, she was found asleep along the banks of a stream, and upon being awakened, could not remember where she had been during the long period of time she had been missing." Keeping in mind, that's years. In another case, a young virgin of marriageable age, like between 14 and 18 in this case, suddenly disappeared. These beings were reported to like the smell of virgins. An intensive search was conducted, but to no avail. After being gone for a considerable period of time, reported as 2 or 3 years, she was returned, but smelled so strongly of these beings that the people could hardly get near her. She was fed and cared for, but had to be kept outside because of the smell. No man wanted her. When returned, she was not wearing the same clothing as when she left. She was never in her right mind again, being completely mentally disoriented and appeared to be more animal than human. She was not vicious, but able to give some account of where she had been, and had not been molested. An informant reported having ascended a hill in the early hours of the morning, as it was just beginning to become daylight. He was immediately aware of the strong smell and odor of these beings, and saw a shadow as of a huge man a short distance away. He remembers absolutely nothing that occurred the rest of the day. When awareness returned, it was late afternoon, and he found himself walking back down the same trail and route that he had gone up that morning. He believes he had been under some sort of hypnosis. Then we go to accounts from different tribe, the Yurok Indian Devils. Back in 2009, Dave Paulides introduced this writer to the writings of author Lucy Thompson. In 1991, she published her book, To the American Indian Reminiscences of a Yurok Woman. It was an inspirational read that touched on the kidnapping of a woman by Indian devils. Lucy Thompson was a pure, full-blooded Northern California Klamath River Indian woman who wore the tattoos on her chin deemed customary for the women of her esteemed high birth. I thought her chapter on abduction gave us a unique insider view of that culture. There was this noteworthy excerpt from Thompson's book, and here's the excerpt. In olden times, the women especially were always careful to keep together on their camping trips when they were gathering the acorn crop, grass seeds, and pine nuts, for fear of these Indian devils. The Indian devils would sometimes watch the camps of the Indians very closely and follow them about as they moved from place to place, watching for an opportunity to seize one of the young women and carry her off to make her his wife. If a young woman strayed away too far by herself, she was often made a captive by one of these devils. The women of the tribe had a great fear of them, as they held great horror of becoming the wife of a wild man. Sometimes the woman would be captured by the Indian devils and would be gone away from their tribe for years, and then they would return and tell of their wild life and experiences. They would become the mother of children, and the children would inherit the wild habits of their father, as they would always be whistling, making strange noises, romping wildly about, and always on the go, roaming everywhere in the wilds. These women were never happy when they came back to their devil husbands and children. When the Indians would go on their hunting and camping trips into the mountains, as soon as they heard an owl screech or hoot, they would stop and listen and try to distinguish if it was an Indian devil imitating the owl or the cry of a wild animal. The Indians would stop at once, kindle a fire. This was given as a warning to the devils that they were awake and ready to fight them if necessary. When the Indians go camping far back into the mountains, and even if a white man accompanies them, they always insist on making the first campfire when a camping place is selected. In building the fire, the first stick of wood they lay down points directly north and south. On the north end of the stick of wood, they place another stick some 8 or 12 inches back from the north end, placing this branch east and west, thus making a cross. When the cross is made, they proceed to kindle the fire, and during the whole time they offer up a prayer to God in a low tone of voice. This prayer is earnestly offered up to the Almighty, asking Him to protect them from the Indian devils and wild animals while they are in the wilds, and to keep them safe from accidents. Thompson's references was to kidnapping, quote, in olden times, unquote, to quote her words, but what about today? Do these kidnappings still occur? What do the reservation police know about this that we don't? She also infers that the Sasquatch, or Indian devils as she called them, were simply Indians gone wild from the loneliness of living removed from their kinfolk. This isn't the first time I've heard that perception articulated in written work, and she's correct. I've heard that in 3 other places as well, too. Of great importance in her work was the mention of children born to the mixed Sasquatch and Indian couples. This, too, was ignored by the proponents of the ape theorem. I've heard stories from other Native Americans where whistling in the tribe by anyone, including children, was forbidden. The reason for that stemmed from their belief that to hear a whistle in the forest areas meant the Sasquatch was on the prowl, and the children were admonished to run for their lodgings lest they be gathered up and taken away to locations unknown. And yes, I've heard their whistle many, many times. They do that frequently in one of my research areas, and we've even learned to imitate it, and we whistle the same whistle back to them, which they seem to enjoy. Klamath women were encouraged not to whistle or stray far from encampments alone, but always in groups of women, some designated to be watchful over the children. It was important to be vigilant, always observant. The Klamath Indians of Northern California used the term ya-ya-ya-ash to mean the scary one, or one who scares me, which is interesting because the Navajo call ya-ya-li, there's, what is it, yi-ya is their saying, and it means exactly the same thing, quit scaring me. This term may be sound alike term mistranslated by white man to the Modoc Indian term ya-ya-has. At one time, the Modoc and the Klamath Indians were neighboring tribes. So that could be where that very similar wording came from. Wenatchee and Choanito. The early Wenatchee Indians knew a hairy giant they referred to as Choanito, translated to mean night people or night person, which is interesting. The leader of our little expedition over there in Nebraska, of course, was Richard Soule. His page, what do you call it? All of the stuff he does, he's got a YouTube channel and everything. It's Nox Gigas Study, and Nox Gigas is Latin for night giants, so same thing. Isabel, a 100-year-old Indian woman, member of the Wenatchee tribe, gave the following report of an event which occurred during her great-grandfather's generation. And she says, in the fall of the year October, a group of male members of the Wenatchee tribe were on a hunting trip near the appropriately named Wenatchee Lake. One of the men became separated from the rest of the party and was captured by Choanito. He was taken to a cave far up in the Rocky Mountains and held captive by a family of Choanitos through the winter until spring. The odor in the cave was terrible. They would not take him out hunting with them, but made him remain in camp near the cave with the women. They were like a different tribe of Indians. In the spring they returned him to where they had captured him. Upon returning to his camp, he was immediately recognized by the children, who couldn't believe he was back, as he had been gone for so long. They thought that he had been killed. He had been well taken care of and treated by the Choanito. This is a report from Ed Fush again. According to the writings of C.P. Lyons and Milestones of the Mighty Fraser, the following instances are only two of the many, many abduction stories by hairy giants told by the First Nation Canadians and handed down through time via their oral history. An Indian woman living near Laidlaw, British Columbia, related this story, and in all seriousness, she said, quote, over 100 years ago, roughly 1850, when the Indians were berry picking, one woman who had strayed from the others was suddenly confronted by a giant. Too paralyzed with fear to scream or run, she was quickly carried up the steep mountainside. After a long climb, during which time she remained in a semi-coma, and so did not note the direction or length of time. It sounds like she was stunned. She might have got zapped or something, or, just terror. She was carried through a rough door and into a rock cave. Two other Indian women were crouched in this cave, and when left alone with the new arrival, told her they had been captured in a similar manner years ago. Wow, that's disappointing. They had been brought as wives for the giants and had since that time bore them children. The men would disappear for months at a time and then return with food. For the new woman, they brought flour and smoked fish that they knew she was accustomed to eating. And they diverge and say the fact to mention the use of the flour dates the story as taking place upon the arrival of the Hudson Bay traders in 1827-1840. And more notes on this. Although the woman had been a captive for over a year and had borne a child, she was still determined to escape. The other two women told her that they would help, and when the hairy giants left on one of their seasonal hunting trips, she was told to prepare all the food she could. She made bread or bannock, suggesting that these people or the Indian women at least use fire, and with a heavy pack of food set out across the mountains. After almost unendurable hardship, she became exhausted and was carried and helped along by the other two women who possessed the giant's strength in some measure. That's peculiar. She was left in a stupor near where she was originally disappeared. The villagers saw her, but she suddenly became afraid of them and fled. She was pursued and carried to her father's house, where she fainted and remained under a spell. The Indians believed that the giants held some mental power over her, but with careful nursing, she eventually recovered. Or they had knowledge of unknown herb with medicinal properties. The second episode is still fresh in many of the Indians' memories. Several years ago, again in the vicinity of Laidlaw, a hairy giant entered a house and caused a woman and her two children to flee in terror. Later, footprints approximately 20 inches long were found, clearly imprinted in the mud along the route the woman had taken. Although she was not captured, she has since refused to live in that house any longer. Hair caught in the door jamb was reportedly reddish in color. A 40-gallon barrel of salted fish had been picked up and dumped over, and the retreating footprints showed that the Sasquatch had merely stepped over the railroad fences and returned directly to the steep mountain slopes.
20-inch prints. That's incredible.
He's a big boy. Yeah, there's a much longer version of that same story, and he was running. He did some other stuff there too, but yeah, picking up an entire barrel full of fish and busting it open like it was nothing, that's a lot of weight. And then finally, we get to the Tolowa and the Quiet People. The Tolowa Indians at what time inhabited the far northwestern parts of Northern California. just below what is now the Oregon border in Del Norte County. The Tolowa reservations ranged along the Smith River in what is now Humboldt and Del Norte counties. Blah, 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 blah. In 1996, Dennis Chase told a story about a Klamath Indian who was told from his grandmother was able to communicate with the Quiet Ones. They were invited to attend the jump dance, brought baskets of acorns in exchange for other goods, and especially chicken eggs, late 1800s. Anne and Red Cody recently met and interviewed a woman named Catherine who was of Tolowa Indian heritage. Her mother was Tolowa, her father an Irish immigrant logger. She's now 72 and recalls many legends about Bigfoot, although in no particular order. The following are her recollections about the stories she heard growing up on the reservations in Northern California. She says, I remember my grandmother telling stories of a large hair-covered man creature. As a young boy, he was hunting and felt like he was not alone. He sat still near a bush and waited to see who might be following him. Not 30 feet away was a tall, muscular, hair-covered creature standing behind a tree. He watched it for a few minutes until it turned and walked away up the hill. He told his father about this, and his father said they were the quiet people who shared the bounty of the forest and rivers with the Indians. Many had been seen, but it was considered evil to kill one, as they had never harmed the Indians. In the evenings, they could be heard screaming in the woods, communicating with each other. It goes on to say, my brother Joe, 10 years my junior, saw what appeared to be a Sasquatch mother with a youngster in tow. The infant was playing with a stick near the creek, while the mother stood still and watched. When she noticed my brother across the creek, she grabbed her young one by the shoulder, pulled him in front of her, and herded him into the trees. She looked back a few times to see if Joe was following. He was amazed at how quiet and stealthy they were. The mother was dark and uniform in color, while the young one was more mottled, with lighter hair on the torso and shoulders. Let's skip down a little bit too far there.
Got about 30 seconds, Duke.
A couple more stories there. We don't have the time to finish them tonight. We'll have to get to them on Thursday.
Well, do us a favor. Tell everybody where they can find World Bigfoot Radio.
You can find me over on YouTube, on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey. You can find my support groups on Facebook, World Bigfoot Radio, and Montana Bigfoot Project for all the people who want to see the on-the-ground research. And then, of course, World Bigfoot Central on MeWe, the censorship-free platform. Come find me.
We love it, Super Duke. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brothers watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. That's what you call a solid show tonight.
Yeah, you had a couple great guests on. That helps, man.
Yeah, totally.
Not just one, but two. Stacks the deck in your favor. How can you fail? It's like when I decided to line up my team to take the impossible challenge and find Bigfoot evidence in Nebraska. I totally stacked the deck in my favor. I know a trick. There's certain people that are Bigfoot magnets. So you put enough of them together at one place at one time, if you're anywhere near where they are, they'll show up.
Isn't that the truth?
It totally worked.
That's the truth.
It totally worked. As soon as a little while after dark, we were standing in the parking lot talking, and Christy got a picture of one standing right in the wood line about 30 feet away from us watching us. And you look over his shoulder, you can see there's a second one back there too. And then we had two of them during the day following us around, and I kept trying to catch them. At one point, they were across Salt Creek from us, and they were back in the bushes. You could see where the two, everything else is dead still. There's no green on anything. It hasn't grown in yet. So there's just these dead bushes, and there's these two really obvious black blobs back there. So I'm trying to zoom in enough to get a decent shot of them. I don't know if it did or not. I haven't had a chance to check the video, but we had them following around. And then we found some structures with the juvies were hanging around, and the adults leave the little ones in some of these structures and stuff when they go off and hunt so they can amuse themselves and have a place that they can scramble into or on top of if something else shows up and they feel like they're in danger. And sure enough, we found all kinds of tracks of the juvies, several different sizes around there. Blaine found a couple of really good-sized adult tracks. And being in my tradition of always finding gigantic tree structures, I found an entire damn hardwood tree that had been ripped out of the ground and was hanging sideways in another tree 30 feet in the air. Yeah, I couldn't hardly believe it when I found it either, But apparently that's my job, finding super gigantic tree structures. So we got all kinds of fun stuff to show. And we're going to have drone video on this one, too, because Ashton the Viking was with us, and he has a nice drone. So he actually flew it over this one chunk of woods before we even went into it and goes, "Hey, Duke, look at this. What's this?" And I went, "Those are huge structures." And he goes, "Yeah, they're over this way." "Okay, we'll go there first." So, yeah, really fun cheating with aerial reconnaissance to make sure you don't wander around a lot. You can, remembering, we're on a really limited time here. We only had 2.5 hours to go to these two different locations. So we had to cheat as much as possible to eliminate wandering around time. Go right to where stuff was.
Sounds like a fun time.
One of the funnest things that happened was we were across this river from where we were. There was a train going by. And me and Blaine both know the trick. When there's noise in the background, you can move around and they can't hear you. As long as they're not already knowing where you are and watching you, it's potential you can get closer to them. So he's sneaking down by the edge of the river and stuff. And as soon as the train goes by, he hears this loud wood knock. And he goes, "Knock it off, you guys. I'm not falling for that." Thinking it's one of us that got ahead of him. And he looks back and realizes everybody's way behind him. No, that actually was a Sasquatch across the river that just knocked at you, Blaine. "Good job, buddy." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not falling for that, you guys." Hilarious. Anyway, you'll get to see all of us picking on each other and wandering around randomly and still managing to do a better job than Finding Bigfoot can do with a week on upcoming. The first episode ever of Inevitably Finding Bigfoot, the Nebraska edition.
I think.
Because why take a simple challenge like, "Oh, your challenge, go to Washington State in the Pac West. You have 12 hours to find a Bigfoot." Pfft, that's not a challenge. We're going to do it in 2.5 hours in Nebraska. All right, anyway, I love you guys, and I am dead tired after that 2,000-mile round trip. Other cool thing that will come up in that video is the first night we took off. We left Missoula at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it took us until 5 in the morning to get to the other side of Montana and into just the edge of South Dakota, where the notorious town of Deadwood is. And first thing in the morning, we got up and we went to Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane's graves. And there was nobody else in the cemetery except for us. So we paid our respects, and firing up the GoPro on the front of the Jeep to get video of all the wildlife along the way, drove through the Black Hills and headed back on down to central eastern Nebraska, where all the events were going on. And along the way, we went through the Sandhills area of Nebraska, which is the most ungodly, desolate piece of garbage on earth. There's nothing. No houses, no nothing, except for sand hills covered with little sprigs of grass for about 2 hours. And there's no gas stations and there's nothing out, and you're not getting a signal. So you better damn well make sure you're going to get that 2 hours across it before you even drive into it. So in the middle of it, we got sick of looking at this endless nothingness, and I got out and stood over by a 3-strand rusty barbed wire fence with 25 miles of nothing behind me. I got an interesting picture of the beam of light coming down on one side and me throwing a big old shadow across the middle of the picture. I sent that to Dave. So there I was on my way to the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference doing my impression of High Plains Drifter. And David's seen the picture and can vouch for its High Plains drifterliness.
High Plains drifterliness, right there. Super Duke, you have a great night, buddy.
Love you guys. We'll see you again on Thursday. Take care, everybody, and be nice to each other. Don't shoot anybody I wouldn't.
Watch out for them Wookiees. We love Super Duke around here. That's awesome. I'm glad he had a good time. I was hoping he would. I hope he makes it. I forgot to ask him if he's going to make it there next year. All right. People for Vegas who are coming to our Vegas party, I am a little behind on getting tickets out. You could blame me. I've been working my tail off the last little bit. And then this past weekend, I found out that my uncle had passed away. And that was my dad's brother. And he was never married. He had no children. And so he, I just been kind of worried about my dad about that. So I know some of you said, thoughts and prayers earlier. I very much appreciate that. And, but it really kind of put me in a little bit of a slump this past weekend of doing anything. But, I'm in the process right now of getting the t-shirts done. We're getting a bunch of swag stuff done. And, that'll be really, really cool to get all that stuff put together. I'm a little behind on the tickets. I will be getting those emails out for your tickets here very, very soon. And so just give a little patience. We will have them for you. And we kind of go from there. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. And don't worry, everything will get done. I promise you, everything will get done. It's just in scramble time right now, and it happened last year like this as well, but that's okay. That's okay. Oh man, do I feel like I need a chiropractor. Yeah, the live stream is going to be awesome. We're going to make sure our tech guru, Random Gee, is going to be making sure that everything is up and running properly. Random Gee. Oh, sure, Joe. You'll drive to Vegas then, but not now. Boo. Not even worth an oob. Boo. Oh, Lola bites your little toe. Yes, Dave needs a deep tissue massage. That would be fantastic. That's one, you know what? I will say this. Out of all the things that I miss about living in the city, it is things like a massage, because there are so few people who actually do that up in my town. I think in my town there's like maybe 2, maybe 3 massage therapists, if that. And like if you want to get a massage, like a deep tissue or something, they're booking like 3-4 months in advance. Well, that does me no good, considering that I am sore now. I'm not going to wait 3-4 months. It's just the way it is. It's little things like that I miss. Oh, I have an itchy ear and it won't go away. Gosh darn it. Hey, there's a new channel. Let's see how this one looks. There's nothing on there right now, but this is a gorilla sanctuary. This might be cool. There might be gorillas showing up on here. That would be cool. We haven't had gorillas on here yet. I'll be right back. Any gorillas? No gorillas. I'll get rid of that gorilla thing here in a second. Let me just do this. Stop screen. There we go. What a good night. I'm like UCS. I love historical accounts of Bigfoot. It's awesome. Poor cub. Thanks again, Mike. Gee whiz. Mike, where are you from? I've probably asked you that before. It's passed my mind. I apologize. Oh, yeah, you're in the capital. 100th time. That's right, buddy. It is about the 100th time. Oh, God. Sometimes I just kill myself laughing. How about my Oilers tonight taking a 3-2 series lead on our good friends, the LA Kings? Love it. Full circle how, May? What's full circle? When I lived in the Lower Mainland, I had this massage therapist, and she was just unbelievable. I would book like 1.5 hour sessions with her, and I'd always feel so bad because she would like put me to sleep within like 10 minutes. And it was just great. And she moved her hands so fast on the muscles that it almost felt like she had like four hands that were like moving and massaging that muscle at the same time. It was just unreal. Unreal. When's the Astros thing supposed to be here? I'm not sure. By the way, there were no northern lights tonight. Kind of disappointing, but is what it is. Mystics Walk. I often did think about that. Human Carl, if I were to drive to Alaska from my place, it'd approximately be another 20 to 30 hours drive. I've never driven up that high before. I know we're about 27 hours from Whitehorse, and I'm not sure if there's a highway that kind of cuts over or not. So that is, excuse me, that one's kind of interesting. But yeah, about 20 to 30 hours. It's, believe it or not, it's easier for me to drive to Disneyland. I could probably be from my house in Disneyland in almost the exact same time as getting up to, say, Anchorage or someplace like that. See, I live about just above a third of the way up the province. So another 5 hours drive, you'd be at central BC. And then you're looking probably, because of the windy roads and the highways and everything, you're looking about another 22 hours from there to Whitehorse. let's see. Let's Google it. If I were to drive to Anchorage, a 35-hour drive from here. Yeah, about a 35-hour drive from here. That's crazy. It's 3,070 kilometers. Okay, so what else? Holy cow. I could drive from my house to Nebraska in 27 hours, or I could take 35 hours and drive to Anchorage. I never knew that. That's crazy. And how long to Disneyland? Disneyland from my place is 24 hours straight driving. See, that doesn't include fuel times or sleeping times yet. So you're probably looking at like 42 hours to Anchorage in driving time from my place. Now it's almost time to wrap things up here. I got to get up in the morning. All right. So let us say thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight. And thank you to our super chatters, Derek ×5, Mike ×2, Cat Chaser CS, Jerry, Jeff, Deb, Susie, and Human Carl. Love you guys. We'll see you all tomorrow. Camille James Harmon is our guest tomorrow night on the show. It's about her alien experiences growing up and everything she's gone through. It's a really cool story. I met her in San Francisco a month ago. You guys will love her. And yeah, we'll see you all tomorrow, everyone. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.